There we are. Now we're live on the pre-show. It is our N10-008 Network Plus study group today. We've got all Q&A in this first hour. As soon as we get started, we got about 10 minutes to go, 9 minutes now. I'm running behind. I don't even have my headphones in yet. They are a large mass of wires that are on my desk. So I don't know what you're hearing. I do know what you're hearing, but I can't hear what you're hearing. All right, now we're untangled. Hey, chat room. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for being here. We're going to get started in about 9 minutes. In the meantime, I'll do some final checks. We'll put some headphones in our earbuds, in our ears. Let's see, our in-ear monitors. I've already done the podcast intro. There we go. Sorry, didn't mean to scare anybody. Didn't mean to. I should maybe start slowly. Hi, everybody. We're ready to get started. Just so you know, we started the stream. But no, I have to come in like, hi, everyone. We're just sort of, I guess I'm excited. I'm always excited on these. I love doing the live streams. So it's always a lot of fun. Let's check some cameras. Camera. The cameras work. I'm a little bit high in the camera. This camera, no, we need to do something with that. That's about right. Okay. I think we are ready to go. There we go. Yeah, we're not going to be doing any weird audio things. Let's just stick to CompTIA and training and certs, and we'll take it from there. Okay. I think we are in pretty good shape. Desk is relatively clear. That's not always the case. We got the green screen question again. That took like 1 minute and 40 seconds for that to come in. So since we're here and since I've got my browser up, let's do this. Just so you can see. Let's pop open the view here. Well, I can't do it right now because I typed the wrong thing. But I'll show you in a moment what that is. In the meantime, this is our pre-show. We're getting things ready to go here. Does it seem that way? I don't know. We'll find out. We'll see if that's the case. I should turn the fireplace on, except it's hot outside. I don't know. What is the current temperature outside? It is currently 79 degrees. 79 degrees Fahrenheit. At noon, it's your rock and roll station, Gulf 104. I don't know where did I over qualified this. I wonder if my SSH works into this. At one point, I had not updated my SSH to be able to do this 10.1.10.238. 10.1.10. That's the internal IP address of my. Nope, I don't have an SSH that works. The power piece that connects to this, it's a web-based front end and there's an SSH-based front end, and the SSH is using such an old set of encryption key types that my current SSH on my operating system won't even allow me to connect to it. I have to make a change to the daemon, to the the configuration of the SSH client to allow it. It's just kind of funny. But good to see everyone. Thanks for being here. We're doing Network Plus today. Network Plus. Yeah. Yeah, it's a cipher mismatch. Actually, it's a cipher misconfiguration or intentionally disabled certain ciphers because they're just too weak. So that's what that's about. And I unfortunately tried to log in twice and it wouldn't let me. Look at the super chats already coming in. We technically haven't even started yet, but Michael in Florida. Michael, thank you for the $5 super chat. He says, your greetings from Florida. Your videos helped me pass A+ 2 years ago. It's now time for Network Plus. Got my test on the 23rd. Wish me luck. Yes, that is the case. You're not running Windows 11, are you? I'm running Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, and Windows 11. And on my desktop here, we're using, of course, Mac OS because we are a security professional. And that's what most security people will carry around is Mac OS. I don't think I'm off. Some will do Linux, yes, but I need an operating system that works. No, I'm kidding. Hold all your cards and letters. If you're on my website right now, there's extensive Linux being used right now for ProfessorMesser.com. I got Linux on the web servers, Linux on the database servers, Linux on the caching servers, Linux on the load balancers. It's all Linux all the time in that infrastructure. But here in the studio, it's Mac OS here. This is an embedded OS. I have no idea what that's running. I should look into that. This is also an embedded OS. Don't know what that's running. iPad OS, Mac OS, Mac OS. There is a Windows machine in the other room, so that Windows device is doing all of the Windows-ish things. Did we time out yet? I think we did. So if you look in the back, let's do this, and we'll just put this together once and for all, that there, the lights are off. Let's turn on one so you can get a feel for what the background looks like with just one of them on. Did I turn both of them on? I did. So let's turn all but one of them off. We'll turn it on halfway. Isn't this fun? Off immediate, except the back left. So there's one side. We'll turn that one off. I need a better interface on this thing. We'll turn on the right. Why not? Because we're here. And then we'll turn on both. And the back left. There we go. And those are the lights, see? It's either a well-coordinated green screen video setup or it's actually a physical background, which it is. It's physical background. That's what that is. So I suspect, actually, I know that my audio mixer is running Linux inside, or at least a version of it. The kernel certainly is. So this is a Linux box, although it's embedded and I never see it. So there you go. And all of my my power systems, my PDUs are, I don't know if they're Linux or not. I have no idea what this is running on the front here. But we're logging off. We're getting ready. We got about a minute plus to go. Get. I don't want to change anything. I don't want to move too much around in the background. There's just, nope, not going to do that. Not going to move things at this point. We're in the middle of shooting the A+. So it's just not going to happen. One of these days, we'll get a camera for the background. You can kind of see the background. Where's that Instagram that I did of the studio from the other direction? Do I even know where that is? I probably have to scroll forever to get to that. So that's probably, I'll scroll forever anyway. We'll do that. So is the 1000-1002 retiring? Well, this is not the A+ study group, but I'm more than happy to answer those questions. And all of the exams technically are retiring someday. The 1001, 1002 doesn't retire until October 20th. So that's how that is. Now, I'll talk about the Network Plus retirements in just a bit. You'll get to see them as we begin. We got about 30 seconds to go. I don't think we're going to make it. I don't think it's going to happen. Don't think we're going to be able to get to that picture. Maybe in the after show. There's just way too many pictures and Instagram is way too slow. Let that be a lesson to you database people about being able to do that. We'll have to figure those pieces out. We got about 10 seconds anyway. Let's get Keynote up and running. Let's get a green plus sign. Do we got a green plus sign? We do. Let's get rid of Instagram. We know this is up and running, so that's good. I think we are in pretty good shape. Let's turn down some of the brightness because it's so bright. And I think it's ready for a study group. Let's see if we can get one going here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the October 2022 Professor Messer N10-008 Network Plus study group. This is our monthly study group where I take questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives, and I ask you what you think the answer might be. And if you are here live watching, you can answer the question online. We'll talk about that in just a moment. We're able to do these study groups thanks to your support. If you are interested in participating, if you are here live, pop open a new browser window and browse to this URL, professormesser.com/QA. That's professormesser.com/QA. That's where we keep our questions and answers. And coincidentally, that's why it's called QA. Really not a coincidence. Then you can also get an app for this. There is an app on your favorite app store called the Socrative Student app. That's what you'd like to use. If you do use the app, it will ask you for a room name. So take very close attention. Make sure you spell this right or it won't work. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER. So make sure you spell that right, and I think you'll be in good shape. Now, if you do that, if you have both of those and you've typed them in and you get into the room or you're viewing it on your browser, then you will see a question waiting for you that says, a network administrator suspects that a server is configured with a duplex mismatch. Which of the following would confirm this suspicion? Would it be late collisions, no internet access, high CPU temperature, no link light, or out of memory? Now, if you think you know the answer, I was going to show you what the answer was, but of course, I have the wrong lower third up here because it's a live stream, everybody, and that's how that works. So I have to stall for time while I click things on my other screen. This is the one. This is me scrambling in the background. Where's the lower third? There it is. Let me drop it now. You can answer the question right there at professormesser.com/QA. And of course, as always, please, no answers in the chat room. Please, no hints in the chat room. We'll be able to make that all work the way you think it should be working. Have a look, lock in your answer. A network administrator suspects the server is configured with a duplex mismatch. Which of the following would confirm this suspicion? Late collisions, no internet access, high CPU temperature, no link light, or out of memory. Lock in your answer, and we will come back to that question in just a moment. Thanks for being here. We do one of these study groups every month, and when we're working on these study groups, you're able to join us live, but of course we have replays that you can watch going back a number of years. Well, for the 008, a number of months. That exam has not been out for very long, relatively speaking. When we're not here, you can, of course, join us and subscribe and click bells and do all the things you're supposed to do by going to professormesser.com/YouTube. We've also got weekly Network Plus Pop Quiz questions on Twitter. Go to professormesser.com/Twitter. And if you go to Instagram, you can get the same thing, except it has a pretty picture with it. professormesser.com/Instagram. There was a question earlier in the study group as we were here waiting about the Network Plus certification, an AA Plus certification, the Security Plus certification. When do these things retire? When do we get a new exam? Well, let's talk about Network Plus, because right now, if you were to book your Network Plus exam, you have a choice. You could book the N10-007 or you could book the N10-008. These are two different exams. Let's talk about the differences. The first is the N10-007. This is the exam version that was released on March the 1st of 2018. This exam will be retiring on June 30th, 2022. That's June 30th of this year. We're sitting here kind of in the middle of April, May, June. That's it. So in about 2.5 months, that exam will be going away. After June the 30th, you will not be able to take the N10-007 version of the Network Plus exam. It goes away forever. Bye, everybody. That's it. All of the N10-007 materials you have will be out of date. You will not be able to use them, or I guess you could use them, but they don't apply towards the N10-008. I don't recommend you use them. The N10-007 exam is a 90-minute exam, has a maximum of 90 questions. Your score is a 720 you need to earn on a scale from 100 to 900. And the exam itself consists of both performance-based questions and multiple choice-based questions. So this is an important date. If you have been studying for your Network Plus and you've been studying for months and you've been working towards the N10-007, keep working. Just make sure that you get that exam passed by June the 30th. Then you're fine. In fact, I guarantee you this happens every time there is a conversion and a retirement. Every time this happens, there will always be people taking this exam on June 30th because we're human, and that's sort of how we do things. So first, there's 2 of those events this month. If you're in the United States, we have to pay taxes. There's your first one where we wait until the last minute. And there's the retirement of the Network Plus certification coming up in June. So very quickly in the next couple of months, we need to be concerned about that. Well, if that exam is going away, what are your options? What if you're just starting your studies right now? What if there is something available? Well, of course there is. There's a newer exam called the N10-008. It was released in September last year. So at this point, it's been around for a while, over 6 months. There's been plenty of time for you to maybe get into the groove with N10-008. You've got to move. This is an estimated retirement date of March of 2025. So this really is the latest exam. You got 3 years to do this. If you're just starting, this is the version of the exam you want to study from. All your study materials should say N10-008. If they don't, get study materials that say N10-008. And for those in the chat room that are asking, all of my videos are updated for Network Plus to this latest version. I have N10-007 course. I have an N10-008 course. Make sure you follow along and watch the videos that match the version of the exam that you're planning to take. That's a pretty important one. Now, if you are in the middle of trying to figure this out, you're not sure what to do, and maybe you'll wait till this 007 goes away, I would highly recommend you do not. Just hop into the N10-008. There are plenty of videos to watch. There are plenty of books on the market. There are plenty of labs available. There's plenty of things that you can use to study for the N10-008 at this point. So I feel pretty comfortable telling you that if you are working on your Network Plus right now, you just started, make sure you take the N10-008. It's pretty important. Regardless of whether you take the 007 or 008, we have materials on our website to help you, not just videos, but we have course notes books, exam hacks ebooks. We've got exclusive access to Q&A for this study group and other things as well. You can find that in our Network Plus Success Bundle. Has all of that, plus offline versions of all of my videos, offline versions of these videos in MP3 audio format. There's plenty there that can help you with your exam studies. Learn more about that at professormesser.com/netsuccess. There's also a video replay of this study group available immediately afterwards on YouTube. There is an audio version that is available in podcast format. Visit professormesser.com/podcast, and you can, of course, follow along, subscribe, listen, and do all the things you might need to do to add this to your favorite podcast listening program. That's at professormesser.com/podcast. If you do go to YouTube and you're looking at the YouTube video description, this would be probably tomorrow for this particular event. But if you go back in time and look at our older study groups, you'll notice in the video description that there are chapter numbers, or effectively timestamps, for everything that we do. So if you needed to jump very quickly to a particular question, you were looking for a question that occurred in the Aftershow on January, and you wanted to see if you could find that quickly, my marketing manager, Lori, goes through and listens to this whole thing. She's watching the replay now. Hi, Lori. Everybody say hi to Lori. This is one that can really help you find what you're looking for very, very quickly. And you can go back years with these timestamps. They are all available for you to be able to find exactly what you are looking for. When we're not here doing a live stream, we're chatting together online on Discord. Please join us on the Professor Messer Discord server. You can go to professormesser.com/discord. That is the best way to join us. There is an icon at the top right of the Professor Messer website. If you want to click that along with the other social media icons there. So there's a couple of ways that you can find us, but opening up a browser and going to professormesser.com/discord, probably one of the easiest. And we'd love to have you there. That's where I hang out when we're not here doing a live stream. We've got vouchers available on our website. If you go to the CompTIA site, you can buy vouchers there as well, but that's full price. And who wants to pay full price for a voucher? You want a discounted price for a voucher, and you don't have to go around the internet and look for a coupon code. You don't have to add an extension into your browser that tries to find a code for you. They're already discounted. You don't need a coupon code. You just buy it. Well, that's really how it should be, I think. Go to ProfessorMesser.com and you can grab those vouchers for any of the CompTIA exams. And if you buy the voucher on my site, I will give you a copy of my exam hacks ebook for free. So you've got not just a discount on the voucher that you get already, you also get something else for free. In fact, you can't buy the exam hacks ebook. So this is something you could only get with my Success Bundle or by purchasing a voucher on my website. You need a voucher anyway. Why not buy it at a discounted price? Go to ProfessorMesser.com/vouchers. Let's go back and talk about that question we started with. A network administrator suspects that a server is configured with a duplex mismatch. Which of the following would confirm this suspicion? Is it late collisions, no internet access, high CPU temperature, no link light, or out of memory? Now, if you were here last month, this is a question we did last month. The very first question we always do of a study group is a rewind question where we go back to last month. And we were a little torn on what we thought the answer was. Let's see how you answered this one. 54% of you say it's late collisions. 23% of you say it's no link light. 10% say no internet access. So we just got the double digits right there. And then we've got single digits. 8% said out of memory. 5% said high CPU temperature. Well, if you monitor your interfaces for errors, and you should be able to find discards, packet drops, CRC errors, other types of issues. You might even see that the interface itself, it's having a problem, may even be resetting itself. That's a common issue on switches that have interfaces that might be going bad. But if you mismatch the speed and duplex, which sometimes happens if you're setting things manually, you should see a number of first, the throughput is not going to be what you expect. Somehow it's not as fast as you thought it would be when you run a test. And you will see late collisions that will continue to accumulate. So the late collisions is really your key that something odd is going on with this connection. And that's why in this particular case, answer A, the 53% of you that answered late collisions, got that one absolutely right. The late collisions are listed in the configuration of your switch. You can look at a switch statistic and see those late collisions. There's probably a place to see it on your Ethernet card as well. You might need a third-party utility or a utility from the particular Ethernet adapter that you're using, that manufacturer. I'm trying to think of where late collisions might appear elsewhere in the operating systems that you might use. If you're using something like Linux, it's very easy to see the interface statistics. So anything that would show you statistics about the interface will show you late collisions, and that's one of the best places to go. If you're Network Plus, then you're a network administrator, you go to the switch. And the switch, and I show you in my video, specifically on interface monitoring. I don't know if it's in this video, which is in section 3.1, the video name performance metrics. I'm not sure I showed the Cisco statistics on the screen just so you can get a feel for the type of thing you would see on the switch side. That's really one of the best places you can go to view those interface statistics. So if you answered late collisions, that is the right answer. You will still get a link light. The connection will still work. You'll still be able to talk to the internet, but it's just not as fast as you would expect. If you do some type of speed test, go to speedtest.com, you go to speedof.me, you're testing how fast this interface is going, and you're thinking, this is not going at gig speeds. It's going at much less than gig speeds. You might want to look at that configuration, see if perhaps you have a duplex mismatch. That would be the answer. It would not cause high CPU temperature. It would not cause an out-of-memory condition. It would definitely cause late collisions. That's your clue. That something you configured has not matched with duplex on one side and the other. So well done. I think more people got that one right this time than last month, which is great. That's what we're looking for, right? That's what we'd like to see. So that is exactly what we have and what we're trying to accomplish. That is a good answer there. Well done, those of you that answered A, late collisions. Now let's do something new. That's all the questions from this point on are brand new. You've never seen them before. I write new questions every month. So let's do a new question. This first new question of the month is always a performance-based question. For those of you that have never taken one of these exams before, most of the questions you'll get on the exam are multiple choice, like the one we just did. There's a question and then multiple choices that you can select. But some of the questions you get, especially the first handful of questions you get on the Network Plus exam, are what CompTIA calls performance-based questions. What that really means is that it's just not multiple choice. It could be a fill in the blank. It could be a matching question. They might put you at a command prompt and ask you to perform a particular task. They could be putting things in a particular order or sorting them in a particular way. Or it may be one like this. This is more of a fill in the blank. I guess it could be matching. It could be drag and drop, depending on how they show it on the screen. But what's important to remember about these performance-based questions, it's just another way to ask you about information that you already know. They're not going to ask you something that comes out of scope from what's on the exam objectives. They stick to the exam objectives. So if you know what's on the exam objectives, it doesn't matter how they ask you the question. You'll be able to answer it just fine. So here is your performance-based question of the month. This is a fill-in-the-blank question, but it's not as hard as you might think. This fill-in-the-blank question is an OSI question. It asks, what OSI layer would be most associated with the following? And I have 5 different scenarios, and I want you to tell me what OSI layer is associated with this. So our first scenario is a router is forwarding traffic for 10.1.1.0/24. What OSI layer is that? The second one is a WAN link is experiencing an increase in CRC errors. What is the OSI layer for that? A VPN login requires a username, password, and token. What OSI layer is most associated with that? Fourth on our list is the MAC address of a switch is 0019 Echo 7 223 Alpha 00. And why I used uppercase and lowercase in that, I have no idea. But there it is, which still is legit, by the way. It just makes me itch a little bit. You know what I'm saying. A firewall allows TCP 3389 traffic to a terminal server. What OSI layer is that? So there's your 5 OSI layers that you can tell me what they are. Are they all different? I believe they are all different, but they could be all the same. But I don't think they're all the same. I think they are all different. I don't think I repeat any, but we'll see. At the end of this, we'll figure it out. Maybe I did repeat one. I don't know. We'll have to figure that piece out, and you'll be able to tell me. For those of you listening in the podcast, let's go through them one more time. What OSI layer would be most associated with the following? A router is forwarding traffic for 10.1.1.0/24. A WAN link is experiencing an increase in CRC errors. A VPN login requires a username, password, and token. The MAC address of a switch is 0019 Echo 7 223 Alpha 00. And the last one is a firewall allows TCP 3389 traffic to a terminal server. So what would the answers be? If you think you know the answer, lock them in, write them in, go to ProfessorMaster.com/QA and write in what you think those layers are. You don't have to be very detailed with this. If you think they're all layer 7, just put in 77777. I'll know what you're trying to do. Just remember what you put in, because it doesn't tell you what you added into that once you submit it. I don't believe they have updated that at this point. So we'll figure out what that happens to be. In the chat room, Sion with the $5 super chat. Thank you so much. The only note there is thank you, Professor. And I thank you right back. We're not able to keep this running without your support. We've got lights and computers and power and all kinds of things that have to happen during the month. And thankfully, we do get your support. You've been fantastic. Keep doing what you're doing. Whatever that is you're doing, keep doing those things because it's working out fantastically. Just keep that party going. This is a crazy experiment. Who knows where it's going to lead us, but I'm on board. We're going to figure this out as we go along. So thank you for that $5 super chat. It really does help a lot. Let's go through each one of these OSI questions and see how you did. A number of you are still putting in the answers. You may have noticed you Googled for this and nothing came up because I wrote them this weekend. So this is not on Google. You have to really know your OSI model to be able to answer these questions. Let's see how you did. Let's start with the very first one, which says a router is forwarding traffic for 10.1.1.0/24. So what would the OSI layer be associated with that? Well, if we have an IP address and we're routing, then we're definitely talking about layer 3. That is layer 3. If we're working on anything dealing with network addresses, and an IP address is definitely a network address. It's really one of the few network addresses we even use these days is IP. I guess IPv4 is one type of network address. IPv6 is another, so maybe we do two. We really do two different types of network addresses. Back in the day, there were other layer 3 protocols we tended to use, IPX, and would Apple Talk really be at layer 3? In some ways, yes. Token Talk, if it was on Token Ring. There were all kinds of other network protocols, which is why we got rid of them. There were way too many. So we shrunk it out on everybody decided we're going to do IP. And so IP definitely works at layer 3 of the OSI model. Next on our list, the WAN link is experiencing an increase in CRC errors. Anything dealing with CRC, cyclical redundant checks, that redundancy check is one that occurs with the signal coming across the wire. And if we're dealing with anything relating to signal, then we're really working at layer 1. Layer 1 of the OSI model, the physical layer. So anything that you're working with that is an error, we're repeating traffic, we're effectively receiving a signal from the traffic off of the wire or off of the fiber, we're really talking about layer 1. Next on our list is a VPN login requires a username, a password, and a token. Well, now we're dealing with some type of application login. We're working at their screen. We're seeing information pop up on our screen. We're inputting codes and information into our screen. That is definitely layer 7, the application layer. If you answered layer 7 on that one, got it absolutely correct. Next on our list is the MAC address of a switch is all those letters and numbers, which I'm just not going to say anymore. It's a MAC address. And you didn't even have to know what the MAC address was. If I just said the switch has MAC addresses on every interface, that would be enough to answer this question, because MAC addresses are at the data link layer of the OSI model. That is OSI layer 2. OSI layer 2 is the data link controller, data link layer for data link control addresses, and a MAC address is a data link control address. And lastly, a firewall allows TCP port 3389 traffic to a terminal server. If you're talking about port numbers, then you are talking about layer 4 of the OSI model. If you answered layer 4 in that one, absolutely right. So these were all different. We have a router is forwarding traffic for 10.1.1.0/24. That is layer 3. A WAN link is experiencing an increase in CRC errors. That's layer 1. We've got a VPN login requires a username, password, and token. That's layer 7. The MAC address of a switch is that particular MAC address, and that is layer 2. And a firewall allows TCP 3389 traffic to a terminal server. That is layer 4. That is your OSI performance-based question, and it's your question of the month. Hopefully you did pretty well on that. If you didn't, this may be a good time to go back and look at our video on the OSI model on the N10-008. It's section 1.1, understanding the OSI model. That's the best place to go to watch anything associated with the OSI model. It's one of those that you will need to know for your exams. One of the first things in the exam objective, so it must be pretty important. And it's a type of conversation, a type of language, a nomenclature that we can use with other people in our industry, and they will know exactly what we're talking about. So if you're troubleshooting a problem on a network and you say, I think this is something related to layer 3, I think I've narrowed down the problem as something like a layer 3 issue with this device, they will know exactly what you're talking about. They'll go, oh, we're routing, it's IP addresses, it's subnet masks, it's something relating to that. So this is one that can really, really help you on your exams. You'll probably get some type of OSI question or a troubleshooting question that might pull from some of the things you will learn by also learning these OSI layers. An important part of what we do in our industry, I used when I worked full-time for another company doing security type role, I used the OSI model multiple times a day. So when I talked to other people, I would meet 3 or 4 different people every day, and every conversation we were having, well, this happens at layer 7, and this device sees that at layer 4 and makes these changes. It's a great way to communicate if you're trying to get across to someone else what you're seeing, because they will know instantly what you're talking about. Let's now change gears a little bit. Now that we've done our performance-based question of the month, let's now shift over to something that is not performance-based. We'll go to a multiple choice-based question. This one asks, a company is changing the FQDN of their SMTP server. Which of the following DNS records should be updated? We're going to talk about this question in just a moment. The possible answers are AAAA, SRV, A, MX, and NS. So you've got a company is changing the FQDN of their SMTP server. Which of the following DNS records should be updated? Is it AAAA or Quad A? Is it SRV? Is it A? Is it MX? Is it NS? If you think you know the answer, follow that link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. Lock in your answer. You'll be able to figure out the details of that. So the Ethernet frame CRC, the Ethernet frame is layer 2, but the problems with errors are occurring on the physical layer. So if you're seeing CRC errors, that's a layer 1 issue. Where you are viewing the statistics and viewing the information or the results of that layer is something else. That's in a different layer. But when you're having errors on your network, and those errors are CRC errors, there are problems with duplex mismatch, you're seeing collisions, late collisions, runts, giants. Any of those types of problems are layer 1 issues. So not really, in some ways they do, some of those errors I just mentioned sort of overlap into layer 2, but the problem is most of the time, especially with CRC errors, let's talk that specifically because that was the question. CRC errors indicate some problem with the signal being received, a corruption of the data. Therefore, CRC very specifically and clearly fits into layer 1. It is not layer 2 at all. Something like runts and giants, we could argue maybe a layer 2 with that one, because that's more of a structure of the frame and not a problem with the wire. So there's your delineating factor. If the problem is you receiving the signal properly, it's a layer 1 issue. So that's why CRCs fit into layer 1. See, the OSI model is not a real thing. For those of you who know, it's not real. I can't pick it up and go, here is the OSI model in this little container. It doesn't work that way. It's not like the IT crowd. Like, this is the box. This is the internet in this box. No, it doesn't work like that. OSI model is just a model. It's just a concept. It's a way of thinking. It's a way. It's not real. I can't point to it and say, there it is. I can't give you a packet capture and say, this clearly shows you OSI. We can see aspects of OSI around everything that we use in packet captures, on our screens, on our statistics, but determining what is in what layer is sort of nebulous. And I think that's why it's a little more of a challenge for people who are just getting into networking, thinking, how do I take something I know nothing about and apply it to a model that doesn't exist? I get it. I absolutely get that. So I believe I'm with you on this one, that it is almost, or we should almost do OSI last. We should, instead of it being section 1.1, it should be section 5.7 of the exam. So if you are worried about the OSI, just keep going with your studies. Just get past 1.1. When you get into the third or fourth domain, suddenly the OSI things will start clicking together a lot better. So don't worry so much that you're perhaps trying to decipher all of these things and it's not working out. I get it. It absolutely. Why is Jen holding the internet? It's so true. Have you tried turning it off and back on again? One of these days, I'm going to get one of those reel-to-reel audio. Just put it back there. I can push a button and it says things that I always say in it. You know, please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Just says it and I don't have to say it anymore. We'll work that way. We'll take the IT crowd model. Let's see how you did with this question. A company is changing the FQDN. The chat room's now going crazy. I'm disabled. A company is changing the FQDN of their SMTP server. Which of the following DNS records should be updated? Is it Quad A, SRV, A, MX, NS? First, by the way, for those of you asking there are a lot of abbreviations in Network Plus, probably more than any other exam. There is a set, here's my tip for you, in the CompTIA exam objectives. Just Google that if you're looking for it, CompTIA exam objectives. There is a list of acronyms in the back of it, already listed out. So it's fantastic. It is a great way to find all of these little acronyms and figure out what they happen to be. And this question is just full of acronyms. A company is changing the fully qualified domain name of their simple mail transfer protocol server. That doesn't help very much, does it? It doesn't really tell you what's going on. That's why I often tell you it's really good to know what the acronym name means. Maybe FQDN, fully qualified domain name, does help you know what that is. But the simple mail transfer protocol may not necessarily help you very much. So not only do you need to know that there is this acronym and the words that are associated with those letters, but it's even better to know how you would use those things, and this question really does speak to that. Which of the following domain name system records should be updated? Let's see how you did with this one. Is it Quad A, SRV, AMX, or NS? 51%. It's all double digits, by the way. 51% of you said it's MX. Can't see that because that's on the screen. Now you can see it. 51% said MX. And then we have effectively one answer for second place, which is NS at 17%, and then a three-way tie for third. It is 10 and 11% for Quad A, SRV, and A. So if we go with the majority, and 51% is a majority still, then we have MX is what most people have chosen. So if we're changing a fully qualified domain name of our mail server, and that's what SMTP is, it transfers mail from one server to another. It can also be used for outgoing mail from your client. That fully qualified domain name does not change a lot. You don't want to go changing the name of your mail server a lot, but sometimes you have to. And so we have to update our DNS to use that particular new mail name. And the record that we are going to change is the mail exchanger record. It is the MX record, MX. The MX record is where you would specify what the mail exchanger is. And on this particular example I gave, it is mail.mydomain.name. It's a very basic sample file. This is the actual text you would find in the configuration file of a DNS server. It's not very difficult to set up servers in Linux and other operating systems when they all just use a text file for the config. And when you want to change it, maybe you want to change it to mail2. So you just put the letter 2 next to it, the number 2, and now that would change the name of the mail server. One of the questions I got this week was, why is the MX record a name? Why don't we just use an IP address there? Instead of it saying mail.mydomain.name, let's change the actual IP address and put it in that field. Well, the problem is if you're changing an IP address of a device, you would commonly change that as an A record. You can see, for example, mail.mydomain.name is also listed as an A record down here as 123.12.41.41. It's a Linux server for that SMTP server. Now, why wouldn't you put an IP address up here and just, it seems like more work, doesn't it? Like you'd have to find the name, then you'd have to go down here to the A record, find the name there, and then figure out what the IP address is. Well, you're right. It does take a little more of a step. But when you have to change the IP address of that server, it'd be nice if you could only do it in one place. And by putting the fully qualified domain name up here in the MX record, that means you only have to change the IP address down here if it ever changes. You don't have to go all the way through the config, because DNS configurations can be very big. They can be, in some cases, relatively complex, and you don't want to go changing things with your DNS, by the way. If anyone ever tells you, and you can ask Uncle Phil at Uncle Phil's Fudge about this, if you ever change your DNS record and you make a mistake with the change, it can have significant impact to your availability and uptime. You can bring down your systems very, very quickly. There's a reason we always say, whenever something happens on the network, it's DNS. That's sort of that's the inside joke with all of our network compadres is any problem, you're having a problem, it's DNS. I don't have to hear what it is. It's DNS. I know what the problem is. It's DNS. It's always DNS. That's one of those cases where DNS is such a problem, and it can create such an issue that you really don't want to touch these. So if you're ever in a case where you have to make a change to DNS, Make sure you follow all of your backup rules. Make sure you have copies of the configuration. Make sure you have a backout plan, all of that. And yes, by all means, the chat room is right there with me. Make sure your time to live on your DNS is relatively low. I think the DNS on mine, and you could do an NS lookup or a dig on www.professormaster.com. I think it's like 5 minutes. Like it will go into your cache, your local cache for 5 minutes. And then after that, it disappears and you have to grab the IP address again. That way, if I change something with my servers, you're never more than 5 minutes behind. So I think that's always a good way to do it. And that's why I would lower the TTL right there. Because when you want the IP address to change to that server, you want everybody to recognize that change has occurred. And if the time to live is set to 24 hours, they'll keep trying to connect to a machine that has changed its IP address, and it will take them 24 hours for that to time out of their local cache, have them go out and grab an updated record, and by that, they've been down for a day. You haven't. Your server changed immediately, but they weren't able to connect to it because your time to live was so high with your DNS servers. So that's why it becomes very useful. We talk a lot about that when we go through DNS records and having a look at them and what the default is. Here on one of the systems I'm using, I don't use this SMTP record on my server, but it does have a default of 15 minutes for the mail record. And that's not so bad for a mail record. In 15 minutes, your mail's back up and running. So that's not a bad number. You can, of course, change this. So you have the option. You can either change it in a configuration file like this. And we're not showing the time to live in that config file, but it's up higher in that file. Or if you have a graphical front end or a browser-based front end, that's one way you can do it, is to keep that down at 15. 15 is probably the tops I would ever do. I'm as people in the chat room are saying, I think 5 minutes is a good number too for DNS. You could probably increase that in certain situations, but I think overall that's probably a good starting point, something you should think about. In this case, MX is the right record that you would change to update your fully qualified domain name for your mail server. You would not change the A record, which changes the IP address for IPv4. You would not change the quad A record, which is the IP address for IPv6. You would also not have an SRV record, which is your services on that particular DNS server. And this is not a service, it's MX. Is what we were working with. And it's not NS, which are other name servers that are available on your network. So you got lots of options to choose from, but only one is correct. Answer D, MX. 52% of you got that one absolutely correct. Now, is there a downside to lowering the TTL? Well, there's always a trade-off. There are always pluses and minuses to everything that you do. If you have 20 people that need access to this server, and your time to live is 24 hours, it's only going to go and check for a new IP address when their local cache times out in 24 hours. So every 24 hours, 20 people will get an update. They'll access your server 20 times in 24 hours. If you take it down to 5 minutes, those 20 people are now hitting your server every 5 minutes if they need access to the server. What if you got 1 million people hitting the server? What if you got 20 million people hitting the server? There's always trade-offs. So you have to do your own analysis of resources, how fast your DNS works. Do you have multiple DNS servers? Are they distributed elsewhere across the network? There was a lot there that you have to think about and design. But that's a little bit outside the scope of Network Plus. But those are the things you have to think about when you're designing and thinking what the configuration is going to be for DNS. And if you've learned nothing else, just don't touch your DNS server. Unless you really, 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 really have to. Is it working? Don't touch it. Just do not touch it. Is it working? Yes, don't touch it. Yeah, but I'd love to see the TTL. No, don't touch it. That is your takeaway today. Don't touch DNS and you're going to be fine. Let's do another question, shall we? Next one on this list. A company is designing a network that will provide the highest amount of availability to a web server. Which of the following should be included in this design? Would it be a load balancer, a VPN concentrator, an IPS, a layer 3 switch, or a VoIP gateway? A company is designing a network that will provide the highest amount of availability to a web server. Which of the following should be included in this design? Is it load balancer, VPN concentrator, IPS, layer 3 switch, or voice over IP gateway? I even spelled that one out for you, just to make it a little bit easier. So there you go. Those are your options. Let me put up the link. There it is, professormesser.com/QA. Lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We will figure all of this out as we go. So if we don't touch DNS, it must work every time. That's correct. It does. DNS works every time as long as you don't touch it. That is actually pretty true. That's actually relatively correct. The DNS does work every time. DNS it's kind of a simple service. It's not doing a lot of heavy lifting. There's no huge CPU requirements. It's not rendering a video. It's doing simple. It's the most simple database query you can make. What's the IP address of this device? This is the IP address of that device. There you go. The problem is those are so critical at the infrastructure level. You do not want to do that and mess around with those things. And make sure you know what you are doing if you make a change. There are a lot of settings inside of DNS. Some of them are weird. Some of them don't make sense. Some of them are odd abbreviations, but you have to know what they all are. If you are making a change to a DNS server, please read like the O'Reilly Bind book or something. And I say that, but I tried reading the O'Reilly Bind book when I was first getting into a DNS. I had no idea what they were talking about. I got through the first couple chapters thinking, I have no idea. But then it kind of sinks in and you start figuring it out, and it's a valuable tool, but make sure you know how you're working with it. Let's see how you did with this question. The question was, a company is designing a network that will provide the highest amount of availability to a web server. Which of the following should be included in this design? Is it a load balancer, a VPN concentrator, an IPS, a layer 3 switch, or a VoIP gateway? 88% of you, if you were designing a network, would say you were going to put a load balancer in place. 7% said a layer 3 switch. You've got 2% that said VPN concentrator, 2% that said IPS, 2% or 1% that said VoIP gateway. We'll just throw those out of the list right now. Is it true? 88%? Is that the right answer for load balancer? Of course it is. This is a great way to provide a way to have uptime, especially if you're concerned about perhaps one server losing a power supply, not being available, having a network problem, something that happens to that server. It would be nice if we had some way to distribute that load to all of the remaining servers. This would allow us to have remaining servers, first of all. Why would you only have one server when you can have 2 or 3 or 4? And then if one dies or one becomes unavailable for some reason, the software crashes, you never know. You've got 3 others available that you could pull from. So great for fault tolerance. And it converges very, very quickly. The load balancer figures out very, very quickly that you are able to work with that system and be able to work through all of the notifications that the system is no longer available right there. You got lots of that there. So that is the load balancer. That is the correct answer. That's the one everybody seems to think is the correct one, and it is indeed. Load balancer is right. 7% of you said a layer 3 switch. First, I think we all know there is no such thing as a layer 3 switch. I'm just throwing that out. That's my standard response when somebody talks about a layer 3 switch. Yes, they do exist. No, they really don't. 2% of you, layer 3 switch would not be the case here because a layer 3 switch by itself doesn't provide any additional availability for a web server. So that is where I would go with that piece. 2% said VPN concentrator, which is great if you want to connect to that server over an encrypted tunnel. Well, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure the server is available for that. We've got IPS, an intrusion prevention system, at 2%. IPS, you don't tend to find many standalone IPS devices these days. Usually it's integrated into a next-gen firewall these days, but it is a valuable security tool. And it will stop known vulnerabilities from coming into your network, but it doesn't help you with availability to a web server. And lastly, VoIP gateway, voice over IP gateway, which you need if you have a VoIP phone on your desk or you're using voice over IP in some way, maybe with a soft phone. Only 1% of you chose that one. That would not be used to provide additional availability to a web server, unless, of course, you're using the VoIP gateway to call someone to fix the server that has failed. Probably not the best answer, not the one we were looking for here. Indeed, we were looking for a load balancer at 89%. If you chose A, you got that one. Absolutely correct. Well done. Well, you've already seen in just a few questions that we've done, there's lots of acronyms, there's lots of content. There are topics that come from DNS configurations and OSI layers and all sorts of other networking concerns. Well, you have to know all of them to be able to pass your Network Plus exam. But if you look at my videos, my Network Plus course, 93 videos. There's lots of videos to watch. Some of you see that number and think, I'm not going to watch all those. I'm going to watch some of them, but I just don't have time to go through all 93 of those videos. Or maybe there's some topics I'm pretty familiar with, so I'll skip that video. But maybe it'd be nice to have a set of notes that covers all of the information that was covered in that video. Well, I've created those notes in my Network Plus N10-008 course notes book, where I cover everything from every video. So this is effectively all of the CompTIA exam objectives, starting at 1.1 all the way to the end of the Network Plus course. Everything in here is Network Plus all day, every day, all the time. Here is the course notes book. This is the PDF version that you can get. There's also, if you were wondering, I have the N10-008 here. There it is. There's a physical version of this as well. It's identical to the digital version, full color, and it's something I can ship to you. If you get the physical version, it costs a little bit more because it's physical, but you get the digital version for free along with it. Let's get past this index of things so you can kind of see what the course notes look like. Port numbers, the graphical view, all of the diagrams that I create, all of the pictures I have that help you understand what this is about, what's on this exam or in this course notes. Everything is in there. People seem to like it. Folks in the chat room saying, oh, totally worth it, by the way, folks. So don't listen to me, listen to them. They're telling you that there's value in the course notes. Maybe there's value for you too. You can get those course notes on my site, professormesser.com/NPCN. And there are, of course, course notes for the N10-007 and the N10-008. Of course there is. So depending on, and especially depending on which exam you're taking, if you're taking the N10-007, make sure you get the 007 book. If you're training or learning what you need to know for the N10-008, make sure you get the N10-008 book. And if you've chosen incorrectly, which sometimes happens, just open a help desk ticket. I'll make sure you get the version that's correct for what you're trying to do. Folks have, sometimes they go to my site, they buy the wrong one. Immediately they'll send me a message saying, oops, I was supposed to get 008. I bought 007. Oh, no problem. We'll fix you up. We'll get you the right thing. Find that at professormesser.com/NPCN for my course notes. Maybe that will help you as well as you're going through your studies. Let's have a look at the next question on our list. The question asks, which of the following should be used if a disaster causes a long-term outage to normal online processes? Which of the following should be used if a disaster causes long-term outage to normal online processes? Is it COOP, SLA, EULA, NDA, or STP? So you've got a few options here. If a disaster causes a long-term outage to normal online processes, is that COOP? Is it SLA? Is it EULA? Is it NDA? Is it STP? This might be one where we know some of these and we can get rid of them. It may be a calculatus, a limitatus sort of thing, where we pull that off and not work through those pieces of it. See if you lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Yeah, how many pages are in the Network Plus? N10-007 Network Plus notes had 66 pages, 66 on N10-007 on it. And this is the number of notes pages. It's not the appendix or anything. This is pure notes. Is 66 pages. On the N10-008, it's 76. So a lot more. So the N10-008 is a little bit bigger in the amount of information you need. So, of course, the course notes are going to be a little bit bigger along those lines. Question in the chat room from Reaper4. Do I have anything for the ISC squared SSCP cert? And I don't. I don't currently have any plans to do any ISC squared stuff. Sorry about that. That's one we're not going to do, is ISC squared. At least I don't think I will. I never want to say never. Because then I'll change my mind. But it's not high on the list. It's on the list. I think ISC squared, especially their CISSP, is so it's something every security professional should have. It's something every employer looks for in a security professional. But it's a little too niche. It's a little too niche for me. Not niche for other folks. It's a fine certification, and one that if you're getting into security, the CISSP is absolutely what you should work towards along other things. I just don't have any plans to provide any training for that at the moment. Maybe you can convince me differently. One never knows. Let's see how you did with this question. The question asked, which of the following should be used if a disaster causes a long-term outage to normal online processes? Is that COOP, SLA, EULA, NDA, or STP? How did you do? We did not get a majority. In fact, we're a little torn on what this might be. 40% of you say it's COOP. 40% of you say it's SLA. And then we have 10% that said STP. And then we're down to single digits in EULA at 6% and NDA at 4%. So this is your challenge, that you've now had a disaster. You've got this long-term outage. And this is something I really put this question in because there have been so many problems lately with one particular help desk company where they made a change to the configuration and effectively deleted all their customer, or at least some of their customer data, and have been down for, it's now over a week, isn't it? About a week. And they've sort of lost some of the information that's there, I think. We aren't quite sure how this is going to turn out, but it's taken them a long time to recover. So now people that were using that service now need to decide, what are we going to do? We've now got this long-term outage to something we were normally using online. Well, I guess we could use paper, which is really a continuity of operations planning decision. We still need to keep running. We still need to understand how to take help desk tickets. People are going to keep calling the help desk. We aren't going to have a front end that we can use to type in our help desk tickets. We'll use paper, or we'll use a notepad, or we'll use Discord, or we'll use whatever we have. But we need to come up with the plan that says, if we lose this, what are we going to do? You see this all the time when you walk in somewhere to buy something and their credit card transaction server is not working. Well, you use credit cards for everything these days, so you don't have cash with you. So they will pull out one of those old credit card receipts that have carbon copy paper in the middle, and they'll put it on this weird machine, and they put your card on and go chunk, chunk. You've probably seen this. You can't do that much anymore. We're getting away from the cards that have the embossed letters and numbers on it. And so they were able to take it off of that, write the information, you sign it. Now they have a physical copy of what they can submit to their bank as a credit card transaction. We did it all with paper at one time. Now we do it all online. What happens when online goes away? You need some type of continuity of operations planning, or COOP. This should be something you figure out before the problem happens, not when the problem happens. So as you're implementing this new system, the question should be, hey, what if something happens to this system and it's not available for a week? What do we do? We probably need to design a continuity of operations planning document, a COOP, that tells us what we can do if this happens to be an issue. So the answer here indeed was COOP. 41% of you chose that answer. That is the right answer. Some of you chose service level agreement. Okay, this particular question didn't ask about a third party or an agreement to get things up and running at a particular time. It would be nice to already have a contract in place. But as you've probably noticed with the problems that have been occurring with that particular company and their help desk, you might have even had a service level agreement, but it's not up yet. It's been a week. So you have to decide, what are we going to do if it's not really been here? Because service level agreements are great if people can meet them, but sometimes there is no service level agreement, and sometimes they can't meet the service level agreement. I guess there are contractual obligations and damages, contractual damages you can go after if somebody doesn't meet their SLA. But this particular question had nothing to do with an SLA. This is just, you're down. What do you do? And that is exactly what you would do. You would have some type of continuity of operations planning to be able to make that happen. SLA is not going to help you at that point, especially if you don't have one. Hopefully, you've got some options there. You go to Plan B. You go to the next plan. Plan C. Plan D1. You figure out what you should do next. Would not be an end-user license agreement. That's for deciding how software should be used. That's that big, long thing that you never read that you always agree to when you're installing software. That's an end-user license agreement. It would not be STP, which could be a number of different things, but since we're on Network Plus, that's your spanning tree protocol. Spanning tree protocol is great for being able to prevent loops on your network, but has nothing to do with recovering from a disaster situation. And a non-disclosure agreement might prevent people from talking about the disaster, but it does not help them get back up and running and figure out how can we work around our issue with these normal online processes that now aren't available. Now it is not normal. Now we are the abnormal online processes. How do we work around that? It's COOP. If you answered A, 41% of you got that one absolutely correct. Well done. Boy, we're running through these really quickly. By the way, if you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit, I want to, of course, give you a way that you can send me a message, and I will send you an email that certifies that you are watching this for a 1-hour webinar category CEU. What you want to do is follow these steps. If you don't follow the steps, I can't give you the credit, because following the steps is part of knowing how to earn the credit. Go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. Follow the Contact Us link. That's the one you want to click on. Put in your name, your email address. In the subject line, put April 2022 Network Plus, and then put the super secret code word of the month, COOP, C-O-O-P. COOP is the super secret code word of the month. And then in the body of the message, just put anything you'd like. If you don't want to put anything, you could repeat the code word. Or I read through all of these if you want to send me a note. I like reading them. I can't necessarily respond to all of them because I get hundreds of these in a month, but I do like reading through them, and it makes my day in some cases. So thank you for putting those in there. The folks that add the little notes at the end, you make it kind of fun to go through and process these at the end of the week. The super secret code word COOP, you go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link, put in your name, your email address, and the title, put April 2022 Network Plus, COOP, and then anything else you'd like. I think that will help you if you're trying to figure out the details of earning your CEU, your continuing education unit. I know we're at the top of the hour, but let's do another question. I think this is a pretty good one, and this one is definitely an N10-008 question. This one asks, which of the following would be required to use a clientless VPN? Would it be a dynamic routing protocol, an MFA, WPA2, 802.1x, or an HTML5 compliant browser? Which of the following would be required to use a clientless VPN? Would it be a dynamic routing protocol, MFA, WPA2, 802.1x, or HTML5 compliant browser? If you think you know the answer, please know answers in the chat room. Go to professormesser.com/QA. That's the link that's on your screen, and lock in your answer. There you go. Some folks in the chat room talking about trying to get those renewing an A+. If you're rushing to renew your A+, you might want to look into the CertMaster CE. The CertMaster CE is a way to renew your certification in a few hours. And you just have to, sort of an online computer-based training. They give you a scenario or a set of things you need to know. You take a test. And then if you pass that section of the test, you continue on with it till you go through all of them. The nice part about that, if you get the questions wrong or you miss one, you have to take the test again, but they let you take it as many times as you want until you get it right. And it's a very quick way to renew. If you're trying to scramble around and get CEUs and put them online and pay for the CEU renewal costs, and what a mess. It can be very frustrating and challenging if you're very short of time. Or you pay a little bit more money for the CertMaster CE. You don't have to pay any CEU annual costs for this. It's included with that. And you just take it online. You could renew your cert in less than a day, and you're done. All finished. That's the way to do it. CertMaster CE. There's a CertMaster line of products. There's CertMaster Practice, CertMaster Learn, CertMaster Labs. This one's called CertMaster CE. So don't just type in CertMaster, type in CertMaster CE, specifically the one for A+. So that may be one for doing that. Oh, okay. And he says, no, what I'm doing is I want to pass the Network Plus because Network Plus renews your A+. You're absolutely correct. And you're right. 2 birds with 1 stone. I think that's a great way to do it. And to your point, you're probably studying for the N10-007. You have until June 30th. Go, 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 go. I think that's enough time. I think you should be able to handle that one. The average for Network Plus is probably 2 to 3 months. That's about what you have left. So I think you'll do it. I think you got time. No problem. You got this. Work through those challenges with time. It's always about time, isn't it? The fire in which we burn. I feel ya. So that is how we do it. Absolutely how we do it. Let's see how you did with this question. Which of the following would be required to use a clientless VPN? Is it Dynamic Routing Protocol, MFA, WPA2, 802.1x, or an HTML5 compliant browser? Let's see how you did. 39% of you say you would use an HTML5 compliant browser. 27% of you say a dynamic routing protocol. 19% said 802.1x. 13% said MFA. And 2% said WPA2. We did not get a majority on this one. Is this the first one today where we did not get a majority right here at the end of this? Very possible. Let's see how we did. The answer is a clientless VPN is what we would use with HTML version 5. That's the Hypertext Markup Language version 5, which is a language or a way to communicate that's built into your browser. If you have any modern browser these days, the version of HTML that they can support, the ones that do this, are really the most modern type of browsers. So if you have a need to connect to these VPNs, but this VPN doesn't require you to install any software on your computer. That's how you do with most VPN clients. They're either built into the operating system or you would install them as a separate application. What if you didn't have to install anything? What if you just brought up your browser, you connected, VPN done? So easy. So great to be able to do that. You won't have to install anything else in your system. It just works. And it's very nice to be able to have that there. You obviously need your browser to be compliant with HTML5, and most modern browsers, all modern browsers these days, would require or need or allow HTML5. They all work and operate with HTML5. So if you're running the latest Chrome, the latest Safari, the latest Firefox, the latest Brave, whatever you're using, that's an HTML5 browser. That'll work fine with a clientless VPN. No, you don't need a browser extension. You don't need to install new software. You don't need to turn anything on in the browser. It just works. It's just an HTML5 compliant browser. It just operates. So really nice to be able to do that. So that is the right answer, HTML5. 41% of you chose that answer E, HTML5 compliant browser. 26% of you said dynamic routing protocol. And admittedly, dynamic routing protocols are very handy, especially if you don't want to have to manually configure routes and you don't want to have to manually go in and change routes if anything changes on your network. It would be nice if the routing protocols could automatically change the routing tables based on the state of your current network. That's when we would normally use a dynamic routing protocol. But I've worked with a number of clients and they use static routing. They don't do any dynamic routing. It adds a level of overhead and automation that is both unnecessary and it's sometimes a little dangerous. So they don't want things to happen automatically. They want to do it themselves. And on certain networks, that's great. That sure is fine. That would operate and work through those. So dynamic routing protocol, although a useful function, does not have anything to do with clientless VPN other than maybe getting you from one place to the other. There may be a dynamic routing, but it's not required. You could do static routing. 18% of you said it's 802.1x. For those of you familiar with authentication onto a network, 802.1x is an enhanced authentication that very often uses a third-party database to be able to verify username and password. This is why when you log into your wireless network at work, when you log into your VPN, you're using the same username and password that you use for everything else. It's all integrated into the same authentication database, and it's able to do that because of 802.1x. However, 802.1x is not required to use a clientless VPN. It might be nice for the authentication, but it is not required. So that would not be the answer. MFA, multi-factor authentication. It has nothing to do with snakes on a plane. MFA, multi-factor authentication. 13% of you chose that one. It is a way to not just have people authenticate with a username and password, but to include something else. Include a token generator app that's on your mobile phone. Include a fingerprint or something that is part of you. Include some other mechanism that can provide additional authentication, which is nice, but not required to use a clientless VPN. And WPA2, only 2% of you chose that. That is, of course, one of the ways that you can encrypt traffic on an 802.11 wireless network. WPA2, very useful for keeping your wireless network secure, but doesn't help you at all when you need a requirement for a clientless VPN. In this particular case, the only answer that makes any sense whatsoever is an HTML5 compliant browser. That is the right answer, and 41% of you got that one absolutely correct. Well done with that. Well, if you've gone through all of these things we've been talking about today, you've heard me say over and over, you need the CompTIA exam objectives. And one way that you can get them very easily is to browse to professormesser.com/objectives, where I have links there that will take you over to the CompTIA website. Make sure you use those links on the CompTIA website. Some people often give out links to a direct download, and very often the direct download is not up to date with the latest version. The only way you can be assured you're getting the latest version of the exam objectives is to go out to professormesser.com/objectives and be able to have a look at those. You can just see from this screenshot, there's a lot in there. There are a lot of objectives. In fact, this is the one for the N10-007, I noticed, because the OSI is in layer 1. Or is in section 1.2 and not section 1.1. I need to update that for the 008, I think. But lots to know. Notice it gives you everything. It tells you everything you need to know. Make sure you know what you should be learning. If it's not in this list, you don't need to know it. And conversely, if you know everything in this list, I'm not going to guarantee you pass, but it's pretty much assured you're going to pass. If you know everything in these exam objectives, you're going to have no problem with this exam. You're going to ace it just fine. Make sure you're familiar with these objectives. They are a great checklist. They're everything you should use. Before I talk about the next study group, I want to thank Blake in the chat room with the $20 super chat. Blake, coming in strong off the top rope, brother. Blake says, thank you for everything you do for us. You're a true humanitarian. It's a win-win. This is a win-win. I love doing it. It turns out that I'm able to at least buy food with the things that we're doing here in this crazy experiment that has escaped the lab. And it's something that we're just going to keep doing until you're just so sick of it. You're tired of looking at me. I have had people send me emails saying, could you just hide your box? Could you just give me videos without you in it? It would be great. I'm like, yes, that's what everybody tells me, but no, you have to look at me. Look at me. So no, that's how we're going to do it. I'm going to keep making them until you're tired of seeing them. And what a fantastic donation. Thank you for the $20 super chat, Blake. We really do appreciate it. And it really does go a long way. And we thank you for your support. Let's talk about when this next one's going to be. We do one of these every month. There's, of course, an archive of these going back years for Network Plus. For the N10-008, I think we go back to November, December timeframe for all of these. And, of course, we keep doing them. We have one scheduled for May. It's on May the 18th. We do 4 study groups a month. We do 2 A+ study groups. We do a Network Plus. We do a Security Plus. Next week at this time, on Wednesday of next week, we do Security Plus, and then I take a week off. In May, that week off. And then we've got right back to it. 2A Plus, Network Plus on 18th, Security Plus on the 25th of May. So if you're ever wondering when is the next live event, maybe you're watching this on a replay and May has already come and gone, you can always go to our calendar, professormesser.com/calendar. I keep us up to date so you'll know exactly when the next ones are going to be. And you You can also find the same calendar in the events channel of our Discord server. Another great way to find out when the next event is going to be. Well, I know the first hour is over. This is the part where I got to ask you questions, but don't worry, we've got a lot more in the after show. I'm going to turn the boat around, and instead of me asking you questions, you're going to ask me questions. We'll take questions directly from the chat room, figuring out how this goes. Network Plus course notes, downloadable videos, the exam hacks ebook, they're all on the website at professormesser.com/netsuccess. We've got discount vouchers and the bonus exam hacks ebook for free. Get it at Vouchers. There were people asking about the vouchers earlier. Currently, the vouchers are only available for the U.S., Canada, Puerto Rico, Guam, and a couple of other U.S. territories. Unfortunately, not available in other countries, at least not yet. I'm working on that. Hopefully, I can figure out a good way to make that happen. For the rest of us, though, that are in the U.S. and Canada and outlying territories, you can find it at professormesser.com/vouchers. And you can follow us, of course. If you liked this video, if you enjoyed this first hour, I would absolutely love it if you could just click the thumbs up that's in the video that you're watching right now. It really does help for the folks that have listened to other people on YouTube. We say this all the time, that clicking that thumbs up, subscribing to the channel really does go a long way, and they're not wrong. It goes a long way with the folks at YouTube. I have access to YouTube folks because they notice that people are watching and liking the videos. And that's the type of content, or at least they've told me, that's the type of content they would like on YouTube. So you being able to click that means that they are able to talk to me about things that normally they would not. And it really has helped. So keep doing that. Keep clicking that thumbs up, and we sure appreciate it. Hey, what happened to that? We've got plenty more to talk about on the study group. We'd love for you to stick around. Thanks for being here in this first hour. Stick around for the second part. We will see you next time on the Network Plus Study Group. Thank you for smacking the bell icon. Cannot thank you enough. Wow. All right. There was a little chaotic with the screens there at the end. I think we figured it out. You never know what's going on. People throughout are saying, is that real back there? That's a real background. It's not a green screen. You can see, I put my arms out. It's all real. I'm not masking anything. This is a real setup. So that is, this is a real, that's my first question is that real? Is that a real setup that yep, it's a real setup. One of these days, I'm going to do a green screen of that and just have something happen in the background during the middle of it. Now I've already given it away, so maybe I won't do that. In this next hour, we're going to take questions from the chat room. So if you would like to ask a question, it would be nice if I provided you with a link on the screen that would help you know what that would be. There it is. You can either, if you are on YouTube, just stay where you are. This is the YouTube chat that we were talking about. If you are on my website at professormesser.com/live, you'll notice there's a chat on the screen as well. It's the same chat. I've just embedded the YouTube chat right into my website. That is at professormesser.com/live. Plenty to look at there. So that may be another place to go for those. Do I have a question from the chat room? Do I have recommendations for memorizing ports? I think I was going to create a Take 10 for this, wasn't I? Did I ever do that? I don't think that I did. On my Network Plus Take 10 challenges, I have some 007, and I never did, but you might want to flip over to my Take 10 challenges. Let me bring this up on the screen so you can see it. These are the Take 10 challenges on my website. They are 10 question sample exams that are really a summary and an archive of what we do during these study groups. And I need to make a 008. So me and Lori will get together and we'll make the 008 this week. I have on this page, though, under the Core 1, the 221001 Core 1 Take 10 challenges, click on that and scroll down the screen a little bit until you get to the performance-based questions. And performance-based question number 1, once we get through the Google ads, will show you a breakdown of port numbers. This is obviously for the Core 1 exam. I'll make this full screen so you can see it. But this works pretty well for learning what you need to know for the 007. I need to make some for the 007. And this is more of a drag and drop where you take things on the screen. What do we got, like 10 frames a second we're working with here? You can kind of see I'm not doing great. I'm not even looking at these. I'm just sort of guessing. So when you fill in all the boxes that you think it is, you submit the answers. And when you click submit, it goes through all of them to see what did you get right and what did you get wrong. And it will tell you at the end, here's how many. Oh, I got one just by luck. I got one right on this list. And it will give you a summary at the end and say, here's how you did. You got one of them right. You can't see it on the screen, but there is a 1 here in the upper right-hand corner. And then it will give you a summary at the end on how long it took you and how many you got right. And are you as good as some of the people on the leaderboard? We'll look at our leaderboard and see where we are. So some of you are still a lot going on there. 19 right in 38 seconds, 35 seconds, and 35.3 seconds. First and second are kind of tied there for both of those. That is on my website in the Take 10. That's one thing you could do to be able to memorize ports. It might help you. I need to do one for Network Plus. It's the schedule is a little chaotic right now with the A+ content that we're creating, but we need to fit one of those in there. It'd be really good if we had one. So that's how I would recommend. The other way is just rote memorization, and nobody wants to do that. It'd be nice if you could make it kind of fun, and that's one thing that might help you. Keep checking back on the Network Plus stuff. Maybe I can add one for the N10-008. I think that would be good. A question from the chat room. I'm studying for the N10-008. Is the N10-008 similar to the N10-007? And the answer is yes and no. Some information has been removed. Some information has been added. So there's a sort of a mixture of things you might run into. I have a copy of the objectives and my comparison of this. We'll run through it really quick. This is a spreadsheet where I've listed out all of the N10-008 exam objectives, and I've tied it back to what that objective number is on the N10-007. Anything that's new is in yellow. So as I scroll through this, you'll see there's quite a bit of green, but there's also quite a bit of yellow. Anything that's yellow is not going to be in your N10-007 materials. And that's why I tell, look at all this. All this is new in the N10-008. So there's a little bit that's new. It seems like almost half of what we're looking at is new. And if we look at the statistics, I'm going to scroll to the bottom. The N10-007 objectives, there were 499. On the N10-008, there's 588. So there's roughly 90 new objectives, not an enormously large number of new objectives. Of total objectives, but the number of them that are new is 235 of them are brand new. So that's quite a large number of objectives. That's 40% of the exam is brand new. So if you're reading an N10-007 book, you're watching N10-007 videos, and you walk into an N10-008 test, 40% of the content's going to be unknown to you. It will be something brand new, and 40% is significant enough that you'll probably fail the exam. So that's why I say very specifically, if you're planning to take the N10-008 exam, make sure all your study materials match that exam number. Same thing for the 007. Your exam number and the materials you use should match, and if they don't match, you're in trouble. So that's why I mentioned that if you're working through them. Now, some of you have already taken some courses from me before. You've taken my A+ courses. You've taken my Security Plus courses. And you not only have used my course notes, you've used my practice exams. And a lot of you like the style of my practice exams. But you'll notice I don't have practice exams for Network Plus yet. So my plan is by the end of the calendar year to have some practice exams for Network Plus. So that's it. That's the quick answer. When will that be specifically? Have no idea. It's not one of those things where there is a date where it must be completed. I'm currently in the process of going through and finishing my A+ videos and getting all of those videos out. Once that's done, I'll probably start on the N10-008 practice exams. So I hope to have practice exams available this year. Now, could that not happen? Yeah, that could definitely not happen. Could it totally happen? It could totally happen. I don't know yet. Only until I get to that point will I know if we're really going to be able to make them available when that's happening. So that spreadsheet is not available to the public. That's my spreadsheet, but you can make one yourself. The 007 exam objectives and the 008 exam objectives are available. It maybe took me an hour to put it together. It was no big deal. And everybody has a different requirement of what they would like to be able to use. And if you are part of the CompTIA, what do they call it? At CompTIA, if you are an instructor, you should become part of the CompTIA Instructor Network. And if you are, there is absolutely a set of resources available on the CompTIA website for instructors. For anybody who's not an instructor, it's not going to help you very much. But you may want to look into the CompTIA Instructor Network. They have a lot of spreadsheets and other content they share as well. It's a fun way to talk to other people who are instructors that are trying to get this information out into the world. And they share often a lot of great tips and tricks. And I recommend that very highly. It's really come in handy. I really need to go through that today and see what all the new stuff is and be able to work through what they're doing lately. There are so many things happening. I know that today is the 13th. It's Wednesday the 13th. But on the 14th, tomorrow, CompTIA is converting over pretty much everything they're doing to a single sign-on system. So if you go to login.comptia.org, that will be hopefully the only login you use if you're not using a CompTIA product that's maybe on your local network. Some people have their own learning management systems. They have their own logins over there. But if you're logging in to CompTIA like most of us are, now it's just a single login at login.comptia.org. But you may have to reset your password to do this. So make sure you follow the instructions on that page. That all happens tomorrow. I think tomorrow afternoon, there's a little bit of downtime with that as they convert things over. So be watching for that. Don't be thrown. Just be ready for it. That's one way to do it. For the folks in the chat room asking, is this a recorded thing? Absolutely. I record everything. Why not? The recording is on YouTube. It will be available immediately afterwards. It takes about a minute or two or 5 or 10 to do the processing, but then it's available. I don't have to do anything. It just happens. There's nothing more I have to do to make that available. And then there will be an audio-only replay at professormaster.com/podcast. Always a replay, of course. Why would I not have a replay? They got to have a replay. Got to be able to go back and see it because I like to be on live events, but you can't be on live on all of them. So it's nice to be able to pop open the YouTube, be able to just watch everything that was going on. And a lot of what we do is watching the screen. It's very visual. So it's nice to have that available on YouTube. I think it works pretty well in the podcast form as well. Question in the chat room from LaTrent. I had planned on taking the 008, but after watching about a third of my 008 videos, I realized I already know this material. Should I just take the 007 instead? I passed A+ recently. I would not go backwards at that point. If you're already a third of the way through 008, just finish up 008. Because there are things in 007 in that first third that are different than 008. And you've already gone through 008. That's your latest exam. There's not a deadline that you have to worry about because that exam retires in 2025. You don't want to have to be pushing yourself to get this done by June 30th if you don't have to. And if you've already studied from the 008, just keep studying from the 008. It's not significantly different in scope. It is significantly different in details, and it's not any harder or easier. It's about the same from the complexity. The difficulty of the exam is pretty much the same between both of them. So just keep doing the 008 is my recommendation. You can do whatever you want. But if I were you, I would just keep studying the 008 and take that exam. Just makes it easy to make that happen. Let's see what other questions you might have in the chat room. We'll go through some of the others that you're working through. Yes, you just had to sign in through Pearson Vue to reschedule, or you had to sign in through Pearson Vue. I think you're talking about something else than the login, but hopefully these login processes, if you've ever had to use CertMaster Learn, CertMaster Practice, CertMaster Labs, then you've had 3 separate login pages for these. And also log into your account at CompTIA, 4th login page. Instead of having all that, it's a single login tomorrow. So that's the part I like. I've already logged into that login.comptia.org just to see how it looks, how it's working. It's coming along nicely. So I would recommend doing that. Make sure you check it tomorrow. It's nice to have it already going, already ready for you so that when you need to get in there, you're not scrambling to do a password reset. You already got it locked in. Maybe it's already updated in your password manager. You are using a password manager, aren't you? You should absolutely be using a password manager. I'm on Mac, so I use 1Password, although I have used LastPass in the past. If you're on Windows, maybe that's one you use, or use an open source. There's some open source password managers out there as well. But password managers, I think, are almost required these days. You have to be able to do that so that you can have completely different passwords wherever you happen to go. Whatever you're using, just make sure you have a password manager and make sure that every site you go to, you're using a different password. I think that one's pretty important too. And if it's a password manager, it almost always today has to integrate with your mobile device. So on your mobile phone, make sure KeePass is a good one too. That's a great one. So whatever you're using on your phone, just make sure that it integrates with whatever password manager you're using on your desktop so they're synced up so you can log in just as easily with your phone as you do your desktop or your laptop or your tablet, and you're golden. Most of the big ones do that already these days. I use 1Password because I'm in Mac OS. It's a very Mac OS-centric password manager. So it has some Mac features that aren't available in other versions. And it works across all of my different platforms. That's what you're looking for. LastPass also works very well on Mac OS. Another one that I use, and it integrated very well to the Mac OS and iOS and iPad OS. So another great way. And if you're on Android, similar scenario, find one like LastPass, like KeePass that has that integration towards all of those. Yeah, you just have to make sure. In the case of 1Password and something like LastPass, they sync it for you in the cloud. So you don't have to constantly worry that you're going to lose your passwords. The only thing you have to remember is your master password, which gives you access to all of those. And of course, on a Mac, I've integrated that with my watch. I've integrated it with my face print, my Face ID. So it makes it very easy when I need a password. It just looks at me and, okay, here's your password, to be able to work through there. Questions in the chat room. How do you comment? How do I comment? Cybersecurity situation for employment. Let's see if we can break this out a little bit from Saley. A lot of people have Security Plus, but cannot get a job. Are certs now useless? This is like I'm reading some type of online, some type of article that was written by someone just to get clicks. No, certs are not now useless. But I think it's important to properly put certifications where they should fit. I have a video, and there's a link in the YouTube video description for this, that there are really multiple things you need to be able to walk into a job posting or be able to look at a job posting and get that job. And it includes a lot of different things. It's not just certifications. It's a formal education. It's some type of practical experience. It's knowing somebody who works there. You may want to look at that video, which is how to get a job in IT with no experience. Let's talk specifically about Security Plus. We were talking in Discord yesterday about this, and this is something I think that the industry is doing probably a miserable job at properly positioning security certifications and how they are used in the industry. There are very few pure security, IT security jobs that are entry level. Very few. Perhaps the only place you would find, or one of the very common place that you would find entry level security jobs is something like a security operations center, a SOC. A security operations center is sort of like a help desk, but for security things. So it's effectively an entry-level help desk position, but it's more positioned for security type role. You learn more about the security nomenclature. You work with security professionals, usually for a security company. So it's great for an entry-level job. The problem is there's not a lot of those. There are very few jobs like that anywhere. So a SOC is great for entry level, but huge amounts of competition for that job and not something that's available in every geography. So not a great situation. There are not a lot of entry-level security jobs. There simply are not. And in our industry, obviously you've seen everywhere, everybody's pushing security. They call it cyber security, even though we have no idea what that really means because it could mean a million different things. But that's the word they've come up with, so we're going to go along those lines. And I'm speaking as someone who used to work full-time as a senior systems engineer for a next generation firewall company. I was in the middle of what the industry calls IT security or cybersecurity and talked with many different companies every day about their security needs. What I found, perhaps across the board, and it really has not changed, is people who are working in the security department almost always, 99.99% of the time, moved into security after gaining knowledge in other parts of the organization. Very often, they are people that have worked the way through understanding desktop management, server management, both Windows and Linux, in many cases Mac OS. They understand networking, and perhaps even not just understand networking, they have an expertise in networking. They understand configuring routers and switches, setting up and designing networks, being able to troubleshoot and look at packet captures. They know about networks. They know about operating systems. They know about workstations. They know how all of those work together. At that point, they have built this very solid technical foundation that they can now layer security type role on top of. And almost always that's what employers are looking for, is someone who has a well-established knowledge base in all of these other areas that they can then bring into security and now train them and get them familiar with the security aspect of all of those. That is what they want to do. That is what they're looking for. And unfortunately, our industry tries to promote security as a way in the door. And it almost certainly in almost every case is not even close to being realistic. The one that really drives me crazy is the people or organizations that promote security training as a boot camp. We're going to get a boot camp and you're going to learn security in our 2-week boot camp. And then you're going to take a certification. And at the end of it, you're ready for cyber security. Doesn't work that way. Doesn't even come close to working like that. That is a complete disconnect with what reality is. It is, in fact, most of the time, if you're learning anything in a week to 2 weeks, there's no way you can do that. That's a physics problem that simply has no answer. How are you supposed to take everything that's in, say, just the network plus exam objectives, cram that into a 1-week period, and believe that people now know everything they need to take the exam? It simply cannot be done, period. It's not possible. You can't do it. Well, there's sort of two ways to look at this. Maybe you've been doing some training, you've been doing some reading, you've learned as much as you can about the exam objectives, you've done all of this work to go through the entire list of exam objectives. Now maybe you can sit in a 1-week training and understand what they're talking about. Except at that point, you don't need the 1-week training. You've already learned everything you needed to learn. Why are you in a boot camp? The second way to look at it is you know nothing. You walk into the boot camp, everything goes over your head. You're drinking from a fire hose. There's no way you're going to be able to understand everything being thrown at you. And at the end of the week or 2 weeks, you still don't know everything you need to know to pass the exam. There's no possible way. You can't. So there's your problem, is that boot camps are effectively, for the most part, generally speaking, not very valuable. There are some corner cases and some very specific examples, especially with a customized training program that might give you some value along the lines of a crammed-in training like that. But it almost never is any value whatsoever. And the problem is they're charging you like $5,500, $6,000 US to go to one of these training classes. Maybe I'm in the wrong business. That seems like what we should be doing. It doesn't work that way. But however, here's the other side of this. Some organizations can see that people like the words boot camp from a marketing perspective, and it's not really a 1-week or 2-week boot camp. They say it's a 4-month boot camp. Or that's not a boot camp. That's training. That's a class. I'm taking a class. I'm taking a normal college course for 4 months. That's what that is. So they call it a boot camp to try to get you in there, but in reality, that's actually very good training. 4 months to train on something like Security Plus, Network Plus, A Plus. Okay, I don't know why you're calling it a boot camp. It's not really boot camp. It's really just a college course, training class. But that's another thing you should look for. So even though if you see the words boot camp, don't get immediately turned off. Do a little bit more research, drill into it, understand what they're talking about. And then when it says, in 1 week, you'll be qualified, you can throw it out. No, you're not going to be. But if they say in 4 months, you'll be qualified, you're like, okay, 4 months sounds more reasonable. Let's see what they're talking about. That's something to look for. So effectively, boot camps are not very useful for learning this training piece either. You have to go through the process of understanding the workstation, the server, the network. Maybe you get some database expertise. Maybe you understand DNS a little better. Maybe you've done packet captures. Maybe you're somebody who's very familiar with Linux. You've built this knowledge of what you need to know. Now you've got the foundation. Now you're ready to go into IT security. I tend to call it IT security because it's a very specific niche of security. It's a very large niche, and there are a lot of jobs available in the sort of corporate or organizational IT security department. The other one that gets me, and I talked about this yesterday too, the other one that gets me is people that push the idea that everybody should be a pen tester. I think everybody should have some knowledge of pen testing, but there's not a lot of pen testing jobs out there. And the pen testing jobs that are out there don't tend to be entry level. They also tend to expect you to have a very solid foundation in the industry. So that's why I kind of look at people that say, you can become a pen tester in 2 weeks, learn everything you need to know at our pen testing boot camp, which is sort of combining two ridiculous things into one very large, ridiculous pile. Doesn't work that way. You need a lot of knowledge to be very good at pen testing. You need a lot of knowledge to be very bad at pen testing, quite honestly. Pen testing's hard. There's a lot you have to know. You have to be very good at solving problems, and you have to be very good at solving problems quickly on your feet with a dynamic environment in front of you, and you never know what you're going to see. Not everybody is ready for that right out of school. You need a foundation to be able to do this. You need practice. You need training, and there's months or even years of training just to prepare you for a formal pen testing environment. So that's another one where it sounds good. It's sexy. It's pen testing. Don't you want to be a pen tester? You can be a cybersecurity pen tester, and we'll teach you everything you need to know in a week. Gosh, that sounds great. That sounds almost too good to be true. Because it is too good to be true. It doesn't work that way. Don't do that. So that's why whenever you're someone who maybe you're looking to get into security, here's what I recommend. Go learn everything you can about all the major operating systems. Go learn the details of Windows. Understand how it operates behind the graphical front end. Understand the operating system itself. Understand the file systems and how they're used. Understand where it stores information, how it stores information, how it communicates over the network. How does it integrate with Active Directory? How does it have security in Active Directory? How do different systems gain access to third-party resources that they've never technically logged into? You know, those are questions they're just basic to Windows. And we haven't even gotten out of Windows operating system yet. Now do the same thing for Linux. Now do the same thing for Mac OS. And then after you've got all that knowledge, now jump over to the network, learn everything you can about the network. Once you you're leveling up every time. You're kind of moving up the ladder every time. We'll start at this rung. Now let's go to the next rung. Now let's go to the next rung. And eventually, you're going to peek your head up the top of the ladder, and you can finally see up high, there's the network up there with the security requirements. Now I can do security because I'm at the top of the ladder, but I had to climb up the ladder first to finally get to where that security piece is. So although I wish the world had a IT security job for everybody who's getting out of college, the reality is there are very few jobs in IT security out of college. In some cases, in some geographies, there are no jobs in IT security out of college because that's not the way IT security works. You have to get there. You have to earn it. You have to learn. You have to spend the time. You have to gather the knowledge, and then you'll be ready. And it seems like that's an insurmountable amount of data, an insurmountable amount of knowledge to be able to understand what you need to know to be an IT security professional. But the reality is, once you've learned what you need to know about Windows, you learn about Linux, you learn about the network, you look at the packets, you understand how TCP works at a network level, you understand how to break out and understand how SSL is communicating and how to set up certificates on your server and how to set up an IPsec tunnel and how to integrate that with multi-factor authentication and blend in all of the wireless pieces and set up an active directory infrastructure with the wireless. So you have 802.1x. And now you're also blending into all of that multi-factor authentication and how it, once you're there, now you're ready for the security side of things. That's a lot, but doing it is sort of like anything else. Once you learn it, you got it. Okay, got that piece. Let's move on to the next thing. Got that one. Let's move on to the next thing. And it just becomes a normal part of what you do. And that's when it really gets interesting. It's, if you've ever played video games and you think I need to get to the top level is 40 and you rush through level 1, level 2, you get all the way to level 40 and you think, finally, I'm at level 40. I'm at the end of the game. Nope, you're at the beginning of the game. Now everything really starts getting interesting. It's the same way in IT. You're kind of going through the level up process. You're learning level 1 through 10 is operating systems. Level 11 through 20 is the network. You're getting all the way up to the level. When you really get to the end game is when it really, really gets interesting, because you're learning things you never even knew existed in technology. You're learning to design them and deploy them. It's remarkable. And so I always tell folks, make sure you follow the path and get there, because once you move up to that level and you get into security and have that knowledge underneath, you'll be able to actually ask a lot of money in your salary because you have spent that time to learn all of those things. And ultimately, we would love to have a good job that we enjoy. We would love to have a job that gives us some type of personal knowledge and personal pride. And we'd also like the job to pay us very well. So it's a combination of all of those, and I think it's very important to be able to do that. The question that kind of rolls up into that in the chat room is, let me scroll up. Someone was mentioning, okay, so we've been talking about, I don't know if I mentioned Lance in the chat room. Let me mention Lance. I've been talking so much, the $5 super chat. Thank you, Lance. Lance says, thanks for the tips, humor, poetry quotes. Yes, let me bring out my Robert Frost and etc. We haven't done a lot of Shakespeare this year. We're working on that. We'll have a summer session. We'll just do Shakespeare for an entire, maybe I'll talk in Shakespeare prose for an entire study group. What do you think? No? Okay. We appreciate that $5 super chat, Lance. More than happy for the tips. The humor, I think that's questionable whether people are really appreciative, but you are, and I'll accept that. Thank you for your super chat. Thanks for your support of the website too. Some folks in the chat room were talking about computer science, because I was talking about how cybersecurity is not a real thing. It's just a thing we say to mean something that nobody really knows what we're talking about. Computer science is the other side of computers from IT. You've got information technology on one side, which is responsible for understanding operating systems, installing, deploying workstations, understanding networks, keeping the networks up and running, working with the databases, the data centers, making sure that you have security. All of that is IT. Computer science, people that are programming. That's kind of it. That's the difference. You've got people making sure everything's running and people writing the code that is running in those environments. Sometimes the people in computer science are writing applications. Maybe they're writing mobile apps. Maybe they're writing apps for a browser. These are people that are building applications, not just programming, but really building an app. You can spend your entire career learning how to better and properly program these applications in different programming languages and we call that computer science. So those two sides, computer science and IT, generally don't overlap. In the Venn diagram of those two things, there might be a little spot in the middle, but that's about it. There's not much that is in between. So people even ask me all the time, what programming language should I learn? And the answer is you don't need to learn any of them. You won't be doing any of that in information technology. We don't do programming. Now, there are scripting and automation that we do extensively in information technology. And I guess technically, those are programming languages. So let's call them scripting languages because that's really what they are. So if you are somebody in IT, if you learn PowerShell, and that's certainly in a Windows environment, and for everything else, if you learn Python, Python also in a Windows environment, Python also is covered in other operating systems too. Those two scripting languages are very powerful things to know. They're skills that every employer would like you to know. So make sure that you understand PowerShell. You know what PowerShell is. You know how it works. You can deploy it and write scripts. Do the same thing on the Python side. You'll have a couple of skills there that everybody would like you to be able to work with. So I would absolutely recommend learning as much as you can about those scripting languages. But as far as learning, do I need to learn C++? Do I need to learn how to build a mobile app? No, you don't. You're never going to do that in IT. If you are, you're doing the wrong job. That's something else for somebody else. IT's not in that world. I know that there is, of course, there's a want and a need in our corporate environments to kind of squeeze these together a little tighter and have more of a DevOps. I think DevOps has basically turned into automation. I think we've realized you really can't take a developer and put them in an operations environment because that doesn't work. We spend our entire careers learning IT. There's another person who spends their entire career learning programming. There's no way one person is going to be able to do both of those and do them well. But it turns out most DevOps is about automating, scripting, and making the operational side of things run without you being there. So it's certainly not about understanding programming. Now, it doesn't mean you don't want, if you like programming, go learn programming. I'm not saying you shouldn't. You're just never going to use that in your day-to-day if you work on the IT side, just so you're aware. You shouldn't be doing programming. It opens up a whole world of other things that you have to be responsible for that in IT we do not want to be responsible for, specifically the code. That is a spaghetti mess that perhaps you do not want to get involved with, I promise you. It's not something that really works. And I agree, chat room. I love Python. I love PowerShell. I love scripting for Linux with shell scripts. I love doing batch files in Windows. I love automation. I do tons of automation on the net. I do tons of automation on my servers. It is something you should absolutely be familiar with. So feel free to go out and learn everything you can about those as you go through them. Other questions. There's one that came up earlier. This one's come up before, but I think it's worth talking about again, which is if you go through Network Plus and you become familiar with the things in Network Plus, and you talk to other people about network certifications. Here's what I hear all the time on the internet. You're doing Network Plus. Why are you doing that? You should throw that away and do CCNA, the Cisco Certified Network Administrator. That's where you really make money. Okay, why are you doing CCNA? Why don't you just do CCIE? That's the one where you really make money. Is that high-end Cisco certification, the Cisco Certified Engineer. That is really some money up there. You're talking easy 6 figures or more just to be able to have that CCIE. That's where you should start. Well, there's a reason you don't start at those levels because you know nothing about it. You've not worked up to that level yet. So CCNA is not an entry-level cert. Let's just immediately qualify that. It's probably the next step up from entry level. The Network Plus really gives you a nice overall knowledge of networking that would really apply to somebody who's looking for that entry-level position into IT. They're looking for a job on the help desk. They're looking for a job maybe in a NOC, a Network Operations Center. That's where Network Plus best fits. Once you learn Network Plus and maybe you get into one of those roles, you think, I'd really like to do more switch administration, router administration. Let's do more Cisco. So maybe that's the point where you would do CCNA. It's very difficult. It is increasingly difficult to jump into CCNA without some type of networking knowledge already, because now you have to do kind of double time. You have to learn everything that you would have learned on Network Plus, but you now have to learn that, and you have to learn everything there is to know about working at the command line of a switch, command line of a router, troubleshooting network problems, understanding APIs, working through everything associated with the CCNA. It's not that easy. So I highly recommend that you get a foundational knowledge before jumping in. And although I think people who say this, like, there's a lot of money to be made at that level, they're right. But jumping up to that level isn't something you can easily do if you haven't built the foundation yet. Build the foundation first, and then you can easily jump into whatever's next. Maybe networking isn't for you. Maybe you want to learn more about operating systems. Maybe you go get a Linux certification. Maybe you get a Windows certification. Maybe you get a cloud certification. Just depends. So, and I get it. People in the chat room now sort of opened up Pandora's box here. Wait, there's more to networking than Cisco. What about Juniper? What about these? Yes, you're correct. There is. But I mentioned the CCNA. I mentioned Cisco just because it comes up so much. And quite honestly, as much as some of us would not want it to be true, Cisco sort of owns that particular segment. So that's why it does come up a bit. Take everything I just said. You can easily apply that to Juniper, same type of issue. You need to get the foundation first, then you will be much better prepared to earn that higher level cert. Now, if you were someone who is, you want to do switch administration, you want to do router administration, you are ready to go, nothing's going to stop you, you could effectively jump into those higher level certs. Just know that you're going to have to do a lot more studying to get the foundations in. You could have just done another cert first before jumping into it if that was the case. So it's a trade-off. Figure those pieces. And I think that's one where in the industry, a lot of people will tell you all the time, they did throughout my entire career, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing this. What they really mean is, if I was doing it, I would do it differently. That's what they really meant. But they're not me. They're them. I have a different plan for what I want to do. I have a different set of interests than they do. I have a different long-term goal in what I'm trying to accomplish. I have different requirements that I've set for my career. And I had to laugh a little bit when this one came across the chat room, which was, is making money all that matters? I just wonder if they laughed when they wrote that in and put it in, because it's not all that matters, but when you're hungry, it matters a great deal. When you need to clothe yourself, it matters an enormous amount. When you need somewhere for your family to sleep, it's incredibly important. So it's not everything. Nobody ever said that it was, but it is certainly very important. And in our particular world of information technology, this is a field that has a very specific skill set that pays some really good salaries. So unlike other vertical markets, if you were in transportation, if you were in medicine, if you were in legal, if you were in, pick almost any other field of work, very few of those would allow you to kind of start at the bottom, work your way up, and continue to work your way up each step along the way, making more and more salary. In a lot of these other environments, you get to a certain point and you're tapped out. That's it. This is as far as you can go without doing something dramatic like going back and getting a master's degree or a doctorate or or spend years becoming some type of medical professional or legal professional. You really need to look at IT as something that has no ceiling whatsoever. You can just keep moving up and make a significant amount of money if that's what you want to do. Now, if you don't, if that's not an important thing to you, that's fine too. I worked with a lot of technical people that I've run across in my travels, and I'd see them working in certain environments. I'd meet them, and I just find these really sharp technical people, and I go, wow, you really understand this technology well enough to work for any company in the Valley or any company in networking. You could become a systems engineer and make twice the amount that you're working and making here. They go, yeah, probably could, But there's reasons I work here that are dealing with benefits. They're dealing with flexibility with my hours. There's things I have in my home situation that this job allows me. I can stay in town. I don't have to travel. So it's not always about the money. I get it. But for a lot of us, it's a big determining factor. And with IT, you make a lot of money in IT. You have the potential for making a lot of money in IT. So that's why. That's why I mention money sometimes. And for some people, that's not their thing. They're not worried about the money, and that's fine if you're not. But there's other folks in IT where we like that there is that potential. We like that if we were to learn more, become an expert in a particular niche, spend some time with these technologies, that we could level up, get another job that made more money. We like that flexibility. And I was very pleased in my career that I sort of started at the bottom and I worked my way through the operating systems, through the network, into the security side of things, and ultimately was working at one of the highest levels of systems engineering there is as an SE for that next-gen firewall company. And because of that, I got paid accordingly. I liked that. I liked being paid for my knowledge. And being paid well for my knowledge. The potential is absolutely there for those who would like to do it. So it's a fine conversation to have. It's a good thing to bring up. Like, are we really chasing the dollar? Are we really chasing the money? We're not chasing it, but we do like that it is a very available byproduct of the things we are learning. And it's money solves problems. So if you have an issue you're trying to resolve and you have money, it's easier to fix the problem. That's very generic, but it is a great equalizer when it comes to what we know about technology. And the technology, by the way, is also, when we talk about in this world that we live in now, and we're worried about who we are, or we have some type of worry that's being put upon us about who we are, what we are, where we came from, who's our family, what we look like. The computer doesn't care. The computer doesn't care how old you are. It doesn't care about your makeup. It doesn't care about your body type. It doesn't care about your historical family situation. It doesn't care about anything. All it cares about how much do you know about this technology. And the fact that you are able, no matter where you came from, no matter what you have done in your life, whatever you've started from, there's a place to level up and make more money in IT, I think is even more enabling than other places, other vertical markets that you might go. So that's one of the reasons I do this. That's one of the reasons I made these videos, is because I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe if you're working in a job that doesn't make much money, this is a way that you can get a job that does. And sometimes that is a big game changer. That's a life changer. And I hear the stories all the time. People are nice enough to send me emails that said, 6 months ago, I was working and doing this in a warehouse. Now I'm working in a technology company and I doubled my salary. That's, to me, that's the motivation I need. Okay, let's make some more videos. Let's do the next course. I'm ready. That's why we're doing this. I often say that we have a very simple mission statement here at Messer Studios. It's, we want you to get a job or get a better job. That's it. That's our mission statement. It's very simple. It's not very complicated. There's not a lot of flowery words in there and nonsense thrown in about being able to work together and hold hands and none of that. I just want you to get a job or get a better job, period. If what I'm doing every day, I sit down and ask this, is what I'm doing right now going to allow someone to get a job or get a better job? Okay, then that's what you should be doing. That is the fundamental of what we want to be able to do here. And that's why, because I truly believe that if we can do whatever it takes for you to get into that position, give you the knowledge, give you the skills, give you the stories to get through the interview, give you some tips, be able to get the job, I think it's one that really sets you up for life. And that's another thing we're trying to make happen. This is a good point on a related note in the chat room. KW says, I have noticed a pattern in IT. I'm wondering if having a goatee helps get the job. I wonder if that's the case. it certainly seems that way. We should do some qualitative and quantitative analysis of exactly this. We could maybe get a survey. We can take some stats. Certainly there's a Google Trends for this, isn't it? Somebody do a Google trend for this one and figure out if that's the case. It seems to be, I think perhaps in the case of this goatee, this one was specifically added because Mrs. Professor Messer wanted one. This is her doing. So better or worse, I think better. Really can't see much in my face with this here. So it works out. This is that maybe she was onto something. Maybe now I've broken the code. That is what she said to do. So that's why it's there. And you're right. I used to work with a number of IT professionals, and there were a lot of goatees. Now that you mention it, what's up with that? Maybe it is, or maybe it isn't. You know, one of these days I'm just going to shave it and come online. You're going to wonder if somebody new is sitting in the live stream. You know, I would probably, what would I do if we just shaved it off? That sounds scary to me. I really started creating the goatee after doing this full time. Okay, technically it is a Van Dyke. You're correct. I believe that's true, isn't it? Technically a Van Dyke. Thank you, Scott. In fact, I don't know why that's hidden. I do know why that's hidden, but we're gonna put that in there. Which I like because I like Dick Van Dyke. I think that's cool. And I just like the way it looks anyway. So is it IT related? No. But I'm on YouTube and stuff, so it needs to look okay. And my stylist, Mrs. Professor Messer, is the one that dresses me and makes sure everything's looking okay. So better or worse, we're going to put that on her to have that there. This would kind of throw the whole matrix off, wouldn't it, if we got rid of the goatee? Who knows? Maybe we cut it back. We'll see if it makes a difference or not. Wouldn't it be great if I just cut it off, suddenly no views on YouTube? It's like, oh, it's very biblical. It's very biblical in a modern sense. That's what just happened. We cut off the beard and suddenly we're not online anymore. Great question. Thank you for your input. Other questions in the chat room. We're doing pretty well. We made it through an hour. Let's keep it going just a little bit. I'm going to take some coffee, look for a question. Oh, that's a good point, Trevor, in the chat room. Not only did you shave it and you get no more views on YouTube, what if you actually lost your computer knowledge when it came off? There's a Netflix movie here somewhere. We're going to work on that. We're going to come up with the first, second, and third act. We'll submit it to Hollywood and we'll see what we get. I will not be in the movie. Not interested. Do not want to be in the movie. But we'll do some of that, figure out the details. Yeah, maybe an episode. We'll write an episode of Black Mirror. That's right. And that's what we'll do. That's much easier than writing a whole movie script. We can fit it into like 48 minutes or whatever it is. 1, 2, and 3. Do you think that Hollywood would ever do an IT program? I shouldn't say ever, because there have been some IT programs that have stayed very close to true. But for the most part, IT in Hollywood, they get it wrong every time. But you have other shows where they've gotten it very, very right. It's nice when they really spend the time. Like Mr. Robot was a very straightforward. IT Crowd, I think, was very accurate. Of course, you have somebody, a goth in the back room who's just been there forever. Of course there is. I've worked there. I swear I used to work wherever it was that they worked. What was the name of the company? I promise you, to the point of having the CEO jump out of the window. I mean, there's probably not quite that extreme, but that's one of those cases. It's almost common for Hollywood not to get IT correctly. Yes, Ray Home Industries. Thank you, chat room. Oh, it's so good to have the chat room there. So that's the key, is having a good chat room and making that happen. That light is blinking. Is it good? Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. Don't know if it is. That is the piece. I always like watching the movies or watching the things on Netflix. And this is the thing, I had to stop doing this because it just drove Mrs. Professor Messer crazy. But you see something in a movie, you go, that could never happen. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't. She can't handle it. I had to kind of tone it down a little bit. I've always loved, you see an IP address of there. It's like 342.76.22.700. Like, that's not an IP address. Of course it's not. They didn't want it to be, but that doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. And going through those. And see other people, and I like that other people in the chat were like, yes, drives me crazy. Should not do that. Not what we want to do. Daniel in the chat room, from a more practical perspective, Daniel's bringing us back home. Thank you, Daniel. To me, Daniel says, Wireshark and tcpdump should be useful once you start messing with networks more. I think Wireshark should be a requirement for everybody in IT to at least understand how to use it at a basic level. Because I also think people working at that basic level might find it interesting and learn more about Wireshark. Now, I have a little bit of a personal thing about this, because one of the jobs I used to have was a systems engineer for Network General, which of course was the company that originated the sniffer. I mean, we use the term sniffer sort of generically now. It's sort of the Kleenex or the Xerox of packet capture, but the reality is it's an actual product name. And it was such a popular product and such a valuable and powerful product that we just started using it as the generic term for packet capture. And having learned and grown up with the sniffer in the industry, not technically grown up, but one of my very first jobs in networking was working at Network General. And I worked there on and off. I boomeranged out and I came back. But overall, I worked there about 10 years. From beginning to end, with a tiny little gap in the middle where I was gone for about a year and a half. And it was a fantastic place to work, not just because it was a great company to work for, and it was. I met amazing people at these places I worked that I still get to send messages to over the internet, and we talk very fondly not only about each other, but the place we worked as well. The other part of it is that the whole packet capture and understanding what's happening across the network, to me, is fascinating. And I think it goes back to our conversations that we have in IT, where we're problem solvers. And to be a problem solver, you have to understand how to fix the problem. You have to start at the issue and kind of break down how to fix the Rubik's Cube of whatever it is that we're working on. And we kind of have to look at the Rubik's Cube, look at the whole problem, and then start, well, I think it's this. And we kind of do the Rubik's Cube this way. Did it fix the problem? Oh, look, everything's the same color. It sure did. I think that's where, whenever you're someone working in IT and you see packet captures for the first time, it changes your perspective of networking. Suddenly you realize, oh, wait, there's a conversation going on behind the scenes through this copper wire, through this fiber, that we had no idea was going on. There's not just a conversation. There are hundreds and thousands of conversations going on. There are devices talking to each other. We had no idea we're talking to each other. We're able to see information we had no idea was going across the network. That's really the key. That, I think, is where, if you ever in a situation where you're trying to learn more about what's happening in technology, go do some packet captures. I really do think everything begins and ends at the packet capture level. Because if you can do a packet capture, not just take the capture, not just hold the capture, but understand the packet capture, I think it really changes your perspective of application developers. It changes your perspective of networks and networking equipment. It changes your perspective of operating systems. It changes your perspective of security. Everything starts and ends on the network. And the more you know about that underground bit of matrix conversation, data transfer, protocol analysis, the more powerful you are going to be with these knowledges, this information you're learning, the knowledge base that you build for yourself. Very, very good to know that. The more you know about packet captures, the more you can read them, the more you understand the protocols, the more you're going to be able to do in your jobs, the more you're going to be able to do in the industry, the more you will be able to level up and the faster you will be able to level up. So that's what I think would be useful for what you are doing. If you're anyone who's ever trying to get into the details of this, that's what I would recommend, is really going and having a look at packet captures. It's a valuable skill. You will never learn everything you need to know about it, which is kind of cool. It's one of those where you could spend your entire career looking at packet captures. Some people do. But if you're ever in a case where you're trying to troubleshoot a problem with a firewall manufacturer, you're trying to troubleshoot a problem with a router manufacturer, the first thing they're going to ask for is packet capture. Well, you need to, at the very minimum, know how to do that. But wouldn't it be nice if you could read it too? What if you didn't have to call support? You could do a lot of the troubleshooting yourself. I just did this, by the way. I was working with a company that's doing some automation for me, or has an automated process that I can integrate with, specifically around getting books to you. Some people like printed books. I'm trying to work with a company that will automate the process that when you buy it, it does a number of extra things and then automatically shows up and is printed automatically and is shipped to you automatically. Well, they have an API that does all of this. Well, I tried using the API from my system, and it just gave me a 403 error, which is a server error. The server was complaining. I sent it to them, and they said, looks fine on this side. We're able to do everything. It works great. I try to do it. It fails every time. Like, what's different? I kind of put it down to the most basic level, and then I did some packet captures. When I was doing my packet captures, everything I do in my studio, and in fact, a lot of what I do on the internet, I do using IPv6. And then to their production server, I use IPv6. It worked great. To their sandbox and testing server, it did not work. But when I disabled IPv6, it worked great. IPv4 was working fine. So I was able to grab packet captures and show them, here's what happens with IPv6. Here's what happens with IPv4. It's exactly the same request and very different responses. And it suddenly went from one of these things that, well, we think, Professor Messer, you've lost your mind because everything works fine here. It suddenly turned into, oh, our sandbox server is not set up to understand IPv6, even though our production server is. We got to go fix that, sorry. Actually, it didn't say sorry. They just said, we're going to go fix that. The weeks of time they were leading me along going, not a problem here, it's your problem. Not a problem on our side, it's your problem. Oh, it's our problem. Ugh, sorry. But they didn't say sorry. But that's one of the ways we were able to fix it. I did a packet capture. There's a very good example of just in the normal case of doing things, you are able to solve the problem. You are able to see everything going on. You are able to definitively point to here's where the problem is. The only way you can do that is if you have a packet capture. Maybe not only, but almost always it comes down to that. So when I talk about how valuable that can be, that's what I'm talking about, is being able to do that type of thing. It's very comparable to folks that if you've ever worked with anyone who's in medicine and you've ever seen one of those 12-lead EKGs, you hook up your heart, they're able to look at every bit of signal, all of the little electrical signals going on with your heart. You see one of those and it's got all kinds of, there's 12 leads. So there's 12 lines on this piece of paper. And I look at it and I think that's ridiculous. How am I supposed to know? Mrs. Professor Messer, who's very well versed in 12-lead EKG analysis, will look at that and go, whoa, got a problem there with that particular valve, don't you? Like, what? Huh? Where'd you get that? It looked like the Matrix. It looked like just a bunch of letters coming down from the top of the screen. No, she looked at it and goes, oh, yeah, this particular EKG, you can see right here on this T wave, I don't know, blah, 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 blah. But she can do that. I do the same thing, but with Wireshark or with Sniffer. So that's one that you can be suddenly. That's why I think her skills were excellent when she was doing critical care in a heart group. Is you can look at that and immediately know what's going on. But certainly on the IT side, you have a comparable way of doing that with packet captures. I highly recommend it. I do not, folks in the chat room were asking, I do not have any Wireshark videos. I just don't. Maybe someday I can create some Wireshark videos, but there are so many out there. There's lots of Wireshark videos out there for you to work through that it's not really a thing. So that's not the issue. Now, some of you in the chat room were saying you wanted to be able to see things that I was doing sort of, without the, we were talking about the goatee. They wanted to say, what if we didn't have a goatee? Let's go back to 2011. Can I do this? We're going to see if I can do this. I'm going to go out to YouTube to 2011 and holy cow. What is it? 50 pounds heavier. Okay. Who's this guy? This was a while back.
I think we're going to have
sounds similar.
Quite a bit of questions to go through today. As you recall last week,
it's a different set. That is what happened to me. Well, I have been working out, so thankfully. But some of you asked for it. This is a study group from. You can go back. There's an OSI question. These really worked out. Oh my God, that's you. Yep. Not just the same mic, the exact same mic. Everything there. I was wearing contacts. At this point, I had taken off the headset. I was into in-ear monitors. So at least that was not there anymore. But we can really go back in time. Is that the only time I did a full screen? I guess there at the beginning. Like there were. What kind of questions did I have there? Will there be snacks? I think these are valuable questions. Andrew asked that. What happened? Same hair. Thank you, chat room. They're so good at picking that out. It is the same hair. Same hair and same mic. Nothing ever changes. To have that. I am eating better these days, apparently. I am working out. This is what I didn't do then. What version was this? This was the N10-004. Ha ha! Oh, I had forgotten I even did an N10-004. We did a 004, 005, 006, 007, 008. We're on our 5th iteration. And look, the N10-005 is coming. Yeah, my green screen's different. Did you notice that the green screen's dramatically different? Where's the shot of this? Did I not? Why didn't I do a full screen on that? But yeah, it's a very different set for all of those. So for those that asked for this, I don't like you. I hate you for asking about that. I don't like looking at myself that way. But how interesting was that? How if we go back to we did this earlier in another study group. What if we go back to the very first video, which we tried to watch, but it had been pixelated so badly by CompTIA that it didn't work out. But I do have A+ videos that you're able to watch, but it's not full screen, but at least on here. So look, wearing glasses. Look at this. You can't even see. It's all blurry. What was the quality? 240. I know I upgraded this. I uploaded it at 360, but apparently it's at 240 now. I think YouTube must do this over time. Like if you've not seen a video in 10 years, I think they probably do that. So there you go. That's my life online. I can't run away from it. They're all there. I never remove a video from YouTube. Everything is there. How many videos do we have on YouTube is a question in the chat room. Let's find out. Let's have a look at our analytics and the number of videos. I don't know. How would I see that? Maybe under content. How many total videos? I don't know. We're up to quite a few. Is it on my dashboard? Probably. So I have uploaded, it doesn't say. YouTube, come on, YouTube. You got to tell me just a summary of these things. Let me do this real quick. Let's bring this up. There we go. Okay. Now let's look online, probably at analytics on the YouTube. Let's look at lifetime. They have a lifetime option in the analytics on YouTube, and it shows a total of how many views? It doesn't. It says 133 million views over time. That's quite a few. But it doesn't say total number of videos, does it? It says top videos. So I don't know how many there are. There's thousands. It's there somewhere. Without spending too much time on this, because why would we? That's what that is. So we've got at least a little perspective. Yes, I don't know why it blocked it down to 240p. I'm guessing, okay, 2,500 videos. That's about right. That's about right. I don't remove anything from YouTube. So you can go back and look at the previous training classes if you would like. Everything's there. There's just no value there. It's one of these weird things where the training classes are incredibly valuable. Let's take 007. 007, very, very valuable videos up until June 30th. And on July 1st, they have no value. Very little. It's a weird world I live in, but that's the way it works. That's why we just keep making more. So as long as they keep updating the exam objectives for the next set, we'll just keep making more. But obviously Network Plus isn't going to change until 2025. So we're good with that too. Got plenty of time for those. Other questions in the chat room. Chat room's very nice because you say I look younger now than I used to in 2000. What was that? 2011, 2001. It was 2011, right? That was a lot of difference. A lot has changed between now and then. At the time, that was 2008. 2011 is when that study group was. A lot changed then. We don't know or did not know where this thing was going to go, how this was going to be. We just kept going if we worked through those things. How do you think a conversation would go if the first video Professor Messer met and talked to the April 2022 Professor Messer? It's difficult because, and I do this all the time when people talk about what this thing is that we are doing. There's certainly a component of it that is getting information into the minds and eyeballs of people, just getting them the information they need to be able to do what they want to do in IT. So a lot of this is just information that I'm trying to get into people. But of course, there's sort of an online component. You have to be familiar with the goings on online. What is the best way to put these things on YouTube? What's the best way to post them on your site? What about search engine optimization? What about accepting people purchasing things? How do you handle the currency? What about the taxes? What about employment? What about employment taxes? What about unemployment taxes? What about, there's all this business side of things you also have to know about. And people do ask me a lot, what is it that you do? How do you do that? What is it about? And you try to explain, well, it's sort of a mixture of different things you need to know. Some of it is technical. Some of it is business. Some of it is just trying different things to see what sticks. So there's never a single answer about what we are doing. It's always a question about where do we go from here and what's going to be the next thing that we do. You just sort of build on it. I talked earlier about in IT, you sort of learn some knowledge and you keep building on it. It's the same thing for doing something online. And in some ways, I don't know how true of this it is, but in some ways it's just being there and doing it. Be the person that does that. If you're the one doing it, then we're in pretty good shape to make that happen. So that's my perspective of it. Is the CertMaster worth it, or should I just get the Professor Messer course? What is my referral code? Okay, CertMaster is a line of products. So if you're referring to CertMaster Learn or CertMaster Practice or CertMaster whatever it is, they have a lot of different products. You need to. We have to figure out which one you're referring to. These are products that are published by CompTIA to help with these studies. And some of the information, some of the products they provide are exceptional. I've worked with the people that are creating these products. I've worked with them. Well, you just saw a video. I was working with those people back then to create. They were creating content. Those same people are the ones creating content for CompTIA now with their CertMaster products. So I've been working with the folks at CompTIA who make these products for a long time, back when I was older, apparently. That to me means these are quality products. And in fact, I own all of the CertMaster products that I promote on my site. I have used them. And in fact, you'll notice I made videos of me using them, telling you, here's what I found here, and look at this, and isn't this interesting? Just so you can see some of the value I saw in it, and you can get a perspective of that. Because things like CertMaster Learn, these are kind of expensive products. They're not inexpensive. I'll put it that way. There is no special referral code to get them. You go to my website, and I have on professormesser.com, I have, I'll show you once I bring this up. If I can type it in properly, I will show you where they are on my site if I could find it. If I could type things in properly. Here we go. There we are. So from the Professor Messer website, here we are. Under any of these menus at the very bottom, for instance, we'll do, we'll do N10-008. We'll look at study recommendations. Once we get through the Google ads, sort of a necessary evil, but again, keeps the lights on. I mean, there's things under here. For example, the CompTIA study guide is in here. I have the CompTIA, we call it the Network Plus Ultimate Study Pack, but this includes CompTIA's CertMaster Learn. This is their full-blown certification course, and this is a video, so you can watch. I'll take you through the entire thing, and you can learn what I learned and see how the Learn product works and the things they offer. If you look at this, though, the pricing of it, I mentioned it's not inexpensive. It is less than if you bought it directly from CompTIA, but it's $429. It's literally the ultimate training course. It has everything in it. Has everything in the ebook is in this. Performance-based questions, it's in there. Practice exam, it's in there. Lab type things, there is a little bit of it in there. It's extensive. It's just amazing. They kind of put everything into one single product. And if you buy it from my site at $429, which is already less than what you would buy it on the CompTIA site, you also get my entire success bundle, a $99 value you get for free. So in a way, you take that $99 off of that, you're at $328. So it's even less money for CertMaster Learn if you get it on my site. So that's a good example, I think, for how these are. There's a benefit for spending your time on my site. There's a benefit that I want to give you that might help you. Now, not everybody needs CertMaster Learn, and that's fine. But some of you have found, okay, I want something that kind of has everything in one place, that I could do this all online, that it has performance-based questions. It's all in there. That is really one of those products that's all in there. And it's pretty nice. I've got the video here. You're welcome to step through. That kind of steps you through everything in CertMaster Learn. I think I go through an example of this. You can see it doesn't jump ahead very well. There we go. And you can kind of see, here's a good example, some CertMaster of some, look at all these performance-based questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, there's like 15, 16 performance-based questions in there. They really take you through a huge lesson of things on there. A lot to see. It's a really nice product. So for those of you that need something that goes beyond the scope of what you're doing now, I think these are good options. If they weren't, I wouldn't have put them on my site. So that's how I look at this. Now, you would have to buy that from my site to be able to get the benefit of having the success bundle thrown in and the lower price. There is no referral code. There is no coupon code. You don't buy this on the CompTIA site. I am a CompTIA Platinum partner. There are not a lot of those in the world. So the CompTIAs, they've been awesome. They've worked with us and partnered with us for these types of products. And as I mentioned, I've worked with the people that make these products for so long. So it's one that I'm happy to put on my site. I'm proud to put those on my site, or else I wouldn't put them there. So I don't put anything on my site unless I like it. I get a lot of people sending me notes all the time. Hey, can you help promote our product? Hey, we'd like to put something on your site. Can we put an ad on your site? Can we do this? Nope. No, you cannot. I'm very, very particular about what you see. And only after I use it and I like it, then you can see it. then I can offer it to you and say, I like this one. This one's good. And if I don't like it, you never see it. I don't look at a lot of things, though. I don't spend a lot of time doing third-party product analysis or viewing. It just doesn't seem like something that's worthwhile to me, so I don't do that. So let's look at some other questions that are coming through. Let's see. Some folks in the chat room, we were talking earlier, and one of the first questions we had in the study group today was about OSI Model. And folks saying, I still don't get it. I still do not I can't figure out this whole OSI Model thing. And I think if that's the case, I think you should put it on hold. You should table that. Stick it over there for the moment. The OSI Model is one that I think best applies once you understand all of the things that are in it. But that means you need to learn about MAC addresses, IP addresses, port numbers, applications. You need to go through that first. Once you go through that first, and maybe do a packet capture, by the way, because you'll notice in my OSI video, I show you a packet capture, and I say, see this line where they say this? That's OSI layer 1. See this line? That's OSI layer 2. I point it out in the packet capture. But I think it's one of those things where you can't bring it all together until you spend time understanding and getting a foundation. And then once you understand IP addresses and MAC addresses and port numbers and applications, you really get a better feel for that, then OSI makes a little bit more sense to you. It makes a lot more sense to you. And it'll just become normal. It becomes a normal part of the way you talk after a while. I know it doesn't seem that way. And I get people sending me messages all the time. Why am I learning this? Nobody ever uses this stuff outside of a classroom. And I'd say, well, actually, I have to be that guy. Actually, we use it all the time. Use it all the time. And then they send a note back saying, no, I meant the protocol. I go, oh, you're right. Yeah, we don't use OSI as a protocol. It's one of those weird things where we do use TCP/IP as a protocol, but we don't use the IP model to communicate with each other people. We don't use the OSI protocol, but we absolutely use the OSI model. Both of those were built on the protocols. They were sort of designed around the protocols, and we sort of made this odd decision not to use the IP model, but to use the OSI model, but do the exact reverse on the protocols that we use. I don't know why. That's how we did it. These things, you can't explain them. There is no logic. We don't work that way. So that's one of those where I think if you're getting into the industry and you're worried about memorizing, don't worry so much about the memorizing. Go through the rest of the course, and what you'll find is organically these things will begin seeping in. And suddenly when somebody talks to you and says, well, we were looking at this from a layer 3 perspective, and you're like, layer 3 perspective? They were working at the IP level, and they were working with subnet masks and default gateways and routing. Like, you suddenly get it. It suddenly clicks for you because you've already done some troubleshooting, or you've had to troubleshoot an IP address or an incorrect subnet mask, or the default gateway was set incorrectly, or a route was not input properly into a router. Then suddenly you get it. Like, oh, that's a layer 3 problem. Okay, let's do a switch issue. It was an issue with the ARP, or it was an issue with the switch filtering out information at the MAC address level, or the CAM was filled up and it wasn't adding any new MAC addresses to the table. That's a layer 2 problem. If you've had to troubleshoot it, and now suddenly you talk to other people at layer 2, now you know what you're talking about. So that's what I recommend. If it's something that you just are not able to grasp your first time through, don't worry about it. Keep moving, keep going, go through the rest of the course, circle back later. And it will make more sense to you at that point, I promise you. It's a good way to approach really any problem in these courses. And there's never really any one thing that will trip you up. You've probably heard me say before that people have come to me and said, I just don't get subnetting. I've spent weeks trying to figure out subnetting. It doesn't work for me. I just can't get it. What am I going to do? And then I tell them my recommendation, which sometimes surprises them. And I tell them, well, just don't study it. Don't worry about subnetting. For this test, for Network Plus, in this particular context, subnetting is a small part of a larger section that's within a bigger domain that's within multiple domains on the exam. You might get one question about subnetting. You might get 2 or 3 questions about subnetting. You might get 0. There have been people that have, well, they violated their exam candidate agreement, and they've sent me a note saying, I didn't get any subnetting questions on my exam. What's up with that? Send. I have to tell them, well, that's the way it works sometimes. It's a big test, but it's not big enough. It's only 90 questions, and there are 500 and something objectives. Some of them you're not going to get tested on. And so I tell people, don't worry about it. Just don't worry. If subnetting is that big of a problem, you could have spent those 2 weeks learning a lot of other things that might be asked of you on the exam than spending all of that time on something that probably may or even may not be asked of you on the exam. Now, if this was a Cisco exam, this would be a different conversation. Especially the CCNA exam has extensive subnetting. That is where my 7-second subnetting came from, because I needed a fast way to be able to calculate a subnet mask, a subnet information without doing any math. Because during an exam, I'm worthless to do math. I'm not good in a testing environment. I get a lot of anxiety in a testing environment, at least initially. I don't like taking tests. Not a good test taker. So I needed some way to subnet where I didn't have to calculate powers of 2. I didn't have to do a lot of calculations of, I've seen this thing where you write on your hands and you calculate. No, not going to work for me. I just need something that tells me the answer, and I didn't have to calculate anything. I want 0 math. How can I do that? And so I created that. I use a sort of a derivative of that, but I created 7-second subnetting because I wanted a way to subnet without any math. Now, some people will look at that and they will say, that's way too much. You're going way overboard. Why don't you just memorize powers of 2? I would love to do that. I am incapable of doing that correctly. I guarantee you on exam, I'm not going to be able to do it, and I will get questions wrong, and it's just too much anxiety, and that's why I did that. However, if you're somebody who does have more of a feel for the math and you don't have that type of problem on your exam, or it's just maybe you just don't like that particular style in the 7-second subnetting, I would say I have another video of a different style, which is the magic number format. There's all kinds of shortcuts out there. Magic number format and 7-second subnetting. Don't tell anybody this. They're basically the same thing. They really are. It's just with the magic number, you're doing a little more calculations. There's really only one way to subnet. The breakdown of how we can do it quickly is different maybe, but ultimately behind the scenes, as you're looking at the format, you're thinking, well, these are the same. It's the same process. Yes, it is, because ultimately it's the same math. Ultimately, it's the same answer. So don't tell anybody they're the same thing, because they are a little bit different. But fundamentally, they're really doing the same thing for you, which is calculating these very, very quickly without having to do it binary math. You're instead doing it by just subtracting from certain values and getting the answer. And people send me notes all the time saying, it's so much easier for 7-second if you do it this way. Yes, it is, but then you have to do math. The whole point of this is not to do math. There are people that can't do math, and this can help them. So that's why I created it. But now you've got an option. So on the 007, I didn't add the magic number video, but if you're on the 007 and you're thinking, I wish I could learn a different way than the 7-second subnetting, go over to my 008 course, have a look at the magic number method. Maybe that's one that would fit better for you. Find the way that works best. Or maybe it's a combination of those. You look at both of them, and then you come up with your own shortcut, which is really what I did myself. I don't necessarily follow and write down every single chart on the 7-second subnetting. When I go into an exam, I write a subset of those because I have memorized some of them. The very first network I worked on with IP was one that had a subnet mask of 255, 255, 255, 192. And because of that, I can instantly tell you any subnetting that deals with that particular subnet mask. It is burned into my brain. I know it cold. I can tell you from a deep sleep the answer. It's easy for me. And for a lot of people, they can do that. They've already memorized all these charts. They got it in their head. They can very quickly extrapolate, and that's great. And I can do the similar thing. So in my exams, I don't write down that particular subnet. I already know where the different stops are, and I can calculate it very easily. So some of it is understanding the process. Some of it is spending time with it. And maybe it's really a combination of those that you ultimately come up with if you're somebody doing some subnetting on your exam. So that's my tips for you. If you're planning to take Network Plus and subnetting just is too much for you, am I the first one to tell you not to study that? Maybe I am. I will tell you, just don't study it for Network Plus, because you would have very few questions. It's a trade-off. The trade-off is if you don't study subnetting, you will have much more time to study other things, and it's more likely you will be asked questions from those other things than it would be this one single topic. That's where I'm coming from. It's nothing more than a best guess. It's a probability, and we're just testing the probability. That's all it is. It's not good advice. Why did I tell you not to study something? That's horrible advice. But from the perspective of somebody who needs to pass this exam, that's my advice for you. If this is really a problem, just skip it. I will give you this caveat, though. Eventually, you're going to need to know how to do it. And I will also tell you, it's actually easier than you think it is. I think subnetting and many things in technology, from the human perspective, we suffer a lot from fear of the unknown. Fear of the unknown keeps us from doing a lot of things. It keeps us from jumping into some of these projects, and in some cases scares us that we won't be able to do it. It's interesting, though, throughout my career, I've constantly been faced with tasks that I had no idea how to do and was completely overwhelmed jumping into this thinking, there's no way I'm going to be able to figure this out. But my boss said, no, you got to do it. Like, okay, let me get is there a manual? Let me read through this manual. Let me read. That's not so bad. They give you the command right there on how to do. Well, that's real straightforward. This is easier than I thought it was going to be. Let's go have a look at it. You go look at it and go, well, that's simple. Why did I think this was going to be hard? Let's just make some changes. We'll do some tests. We'll put it in the lab. We'll do this. We'll make a new configuration, blah, blah. Done. And all that time I was worried. I was not wanting to get started. I was scared of failure. I was ready for this to blow up in my face. And I just thought, I'm not going to be smart enough to do this. But then once you sit down with it, you realize, was not as bad it's always not as bad as you think it's going to be. We always go the worst case scenario. It's always red alert. It's always, it's cancer. I know it's cancer. Oh no, I just scraped myself. I just need a Band-Aid. That's what it always tends out to be that way. So it's the same thing with everything you're going to find in networking is that, that's insurmountable. There's no way I'm going to be able to, actually it wasn't so bad. What's the next thing we do? Okay, I got that done. Let's go to the next thing. So it's going to be the same for you, whether it's with subnetting or dynamic routing or protocol decodes or whatever it happens to be. It's all the same thing. Don't be scared. Just jump into it. As it turns out, everybody else feels the same way. And that's the piece you sort of forget, that none of us know how any of this stuff works. We all have to learn it going in. And if you could be the first one to say, yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about, so can we go slow through this and maybe we can figure this out? Turns out nobody else in the room knows either. So you sometimes have to be the one to tell other people that you're too stupid to know this because you've never seen it before. Have some patience. I'll figure it out, but let's go through it slow and we'll figure out the details. Being the dumb one in the room, being the one in the room that asks the questions sometimes is the most enabling person in the room. They're the one that everybody else comes up to afterward and says, I am so glad you asked about that. I had no idea what we were talking about. But they're not going to say that out loud. They're not going to mention it in the room to everybody else, but they're going to come up to you afterwards and go, hey, thanks for stepping through that. That was, I have no idea what they were saying, but now I get it because we stepped through. That's valuable stuff. And you're just enabling it. You're really helping yourself. Turns out you're helping the other folks around you too. That's my advice to you. If you take nothing away today, my advice to you is be the dumb one in the room. As it turns out, that's the best path to go on. irony. It's like rain on your wedding day. I have no idea what that means. Thank you for being here for these study groups. We love doing them. We love that you're here spending the time with us. Thank you for your time in the first hour in the Q&A. Thank you for your questions in the last hour. Thank you for your trip down memory lane. I'm going to show Mrs. Professor Messer that picture of me from 2011 and see what her input is, see what she thinks. She was married to me then, so you got to give that girl some props. She stuck in there, thankfully. And then we're going to come back next week. Join us Wednesday of next week. We got a Security Plus study group. It was going to be fantastic, but I haven't written the questions yet. So come back and let's see what I do. Probably write them this weekend. So it'll be interesting what comes from there as well. It's always something new. There's always new things to talk about. There's always plenty of questions to go through, and we're glad that you can join us and ask those questions with us. Thanks for joining us. We will see everyone next time on our Network Plus study group. Thanks, everybody.